I am the true heiress of a wealthy family, having been lost and adrift for 20 years. After being recognized by my family, my mother placed a priceless family heirloom necklace worth hundreds of millions around my neck. Overnight, I went from being the admired genius campus belle to someone who couldn't even take care of myself, a complete fool. Instead of helping me find a doctor, my mother declared me mentally ill, locked me in my room, and cut me off from the outside world completely. Then, while mother was away, the imposter daughter took me away. I had barely escaped the house when a truck hit me head-on, killing me instantly. As I lay dead, blood trickling from all my orifices, she snatched the diamond necklace worth hundreds of millions off my corpse, her voice dripping with envy. I am the one and only heiress of the Chiao family. That family heirloom rightfully belongs to me. Why should mom keep you when you're just an idiot? Drop dead. Only after death did I discover the fake heiress never meant to save me. She was the one who arranged the car that killed me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the family reunion. I swiftly handed the necklace over to the fake heiress. If she wants this life-saving necklace so badly, she can have it. On the day I was recognized by the wealthy family, my mother gave me a diamond necklace worth over $1 billion in front of everyone. Iris, this necklace is the Chiao family heirloom. I'm giving it to you today to make up for all the suffering you've endured these years. Jade, the imposter who had taken my place for 20 years, looked utterly shocked. She tugged at her mother's sleeve, her voice laced with displeasure. Mom, you never even let my brother and me touch this necklace before. How come you just gave it to her the moment she came back? The eldest son of the Chiao family, my brother and the fake heiress's brother, immediately caught on as well. Mom, even if Iris is your biological daughter, you can't be this biased, can you? Mom furrowed her brow, but before she could speak, I obediently presented the necklace to Jade with both hands. My brother is right. Besides, all these years it's been my sister keeping mom company in my place. Consider the necklace a token of gratitude for her. The adopted daughter was about to take the necklace when her mother snatched it away. Seeing our shocked expressions, she quickly tried to justify her actions. 1. Iris is the true Chiao family descendant, and she's been through so much hardship. This necklace is a Chiao family heirloom. It's only right that Iris should have it. In my past life, I was so moved by my mother's words that I never took off the necklace from that day on. But overnight, I went from being the school's admired genius beauty to a senile old woman who couldn't even take care of herself. The experimental data that once made me shine now looked like nothing but incomprehensible gibberish to my eyes. Meanwhile, my mother shed all her white hair and wrinkles. At 50, she had the figure of an 18-year-old girl. The moment the changes started happening, I panicked and wanted to see a doctor, but my mother stopped me at the door, insisting it was just exhaustion from spending too much time in the lab. She not only locked me in my bedroom but also confiscated all my electronic devices. It was only later that I realized everything was because of that necklace. Through it, my mother stole away my looks and talents. I wanted to escape, but by then I had become a fool who couldn't even use the toilet, let alone come up with a plan, until Jade rescued me. I grinned from ear to ear, wanting to thank her. But the next second, she shoved me down into the middle of the road. A speeding car slammed into me, hurling me through the air, then ran right over my body. Just before my consciousness faded, I heard Jade's triumphant laughter. You bitch, who said you could come back? I'm the only princess in this family, and the heirloom belongs to me. You're just a fool. Why should mom insist on keeping you? Drop dead. Only after death did I discover she'd even orchestrated the car accident that killed me. All because she envied me for receiving mother's favor. Fortunately, heaven took pity and granted me a second chance at life. Watching the group's shifting expressions, I lowered my gaze. Fine, if you're so desperate for this special treatment, have it your way. Seeing mother take the necklace back, Jade shot me a look full of resentment. Now that her real daughter is back, I'm just the adopted one who doesn't belong. No way. Her eyes welled up with tears as she turned and ran away, covering her face. Brother's face darkened. Mom, that was way out of line. Jade's always been sensitive, and you, he paused, leaving the rest unsaid, but continued indignantly. Besides, didn't Iris agree too? We're all family here. Is there really a need to be so calculative? Mom shot him a sharp glare. I'm still the one running this household. I decide who gets what. Since when do you get to order me around? My brother immediately clammed up. Just then, a door slammed shut upstairs with a loud bang. Jade came downstairs carrying a suitcase. Her expression resolute and defiant, she stopped in front of us, looking at Mom with tears welling up in her eyes. Mom, being your daughter these past 20 years has meant the world to me, truly, but I should be going now. After all, I'm just an outsider who's overstayed my welcome. As she spoke, she shot me a resentful glance. Seeing the heat turning toward me, I swiftly slipped the necklace into her hand. Don't say such hurtful things, little sister, if you like the necklace. I'll gladly give it to you, let it be a token of our sisterly bond. Jade excitedly took the necklace and was about to put it on when her mother's expression changed. She rushed over and forcefully snatched it away. The thin, rigid chain scraped across her palm and neck, instantly leaving several bloody scratches. That hurts. Her brother was startled and hurried forward to cover her wounds with his hand, frowning. He looked at their mother with shock and confusion. Mom, you raised Jade for 20 years, how could you hurt her like this? Mother stared at the marks on Jade's neck, her face full of concern, but she clutched the necklace tightly, refusing to step forward, and insisted firmly, this is the Chia family heirloom, and it must go to Iris, none of you are taking it. Jade's eyes welled up, and she could no longer hold back her tears. Give it to whoever you want, I'm just an unwanted outsider anyway. I'm leaving right now. With that, she stormed out without even taking her luggage, blood still trickling down her neck. Her brother followed closely behind her. The siblings, one after the other, bumped into their mother, sending her stumbling. Caught off guard, their mother's back slammed hard against the corner of the table, and she let out a sharp cry of pain, yet neither sibling even glanced back at her. As I brought the first aid kit to tend to Mom's wounds, I pretended to be magnanimous and advised her, Mom, I know you're trying to make up for all the hardship I've endured over the years. I truly appreciate the sentiment, but my sister really loves this necklace. Why don't we give it to her when she returns? After all, we're still family. Mom gave me a somber look and said softly, No, you must take this necklace. I've spoiled Jade, and you shouldn't mind her. Just keep what's given to you. After all, you're my own daughter. I lowered my head and said nothing more. I truly didn't understand. If I'm her real daughter, why did she go through the trouble of finding me just to treat me like this? That evening, Jade returned home arm in arm with her brother. When she spotted her mother on the sofa, she awkwardly averted her gaze and went straight to her room. Her brother stepped forward with an apologetic look. Sorry, Mom. I was too worked up this afternoon. He paused, watching his mother's expression carefully, but you know Jade has been feeling insecure lately. After how you treated her today, she's bound to overthink things again. He paused, glanced at me, and continued, they're both Chia family daughters anyway, why not just let her have the necklace? Before my brother could finish, Mother cut him off with a stern expression, anything else is negotiable, but this is non-negotiable. The necklace can only go to Iris. Her brother scowled and muttered under his breath, I just don't get it, we're all your children, so why does she get all the good stuff? Iris is your precious daughter, and my sister and I are just some strays you picked up off the street, is that it? What do we even mean to you as your children? Mom looked up abruptly, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came out. I quickly stepped forward to intervene, brother, please stop arguing with Mom, let me talk with her instead. My brother shot me a fierce glare, muttering phony sympathy under his breath before turning away. I pretended not to hear, gently patting Mom's back to help her calm down. Don't be upset, Mom. Brother's just overly concerned about Jade. Mom grasped my hand, her gaze unusually resolute. Don't worry, Iris, no matter what they say, the family heirloom will always be yours. She spoke with sincere affection, her eyes brimming with tenderness, fortunately, having lived through this once before. I knew exactly what she was scheming. I pretended not to understand and said, Mom, is it really worth upsetting both brother and sister over a necklace? If little sister wants it that badly, why not just let her have it? Mother's face instantly fell. What's yours is yours. The Chia family isn't so poor that our daughters need to fight over a single necklace. I'm going back to my room. I don't want to discuss this any further. Seeing her impatience, I didn't dare say another word. Lying in bed that night, I kept thinking about all the ways Mom had been acting strange lately. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't understand why my own mother would want to hurt me. The next day, something unexpected happened. Jade, who had been sulking just yesterday, was now sitting beside her mother, cheerfully slicing an apple for her. I was utterly astonished. What on earth could have happened in just one night to make Jade's attitude change so suddenly, suppressing my doubts? I calmly walked over and took a seat on the opposite sofa. My mother gave me a meaningful glance and suddenly said to me, Iris, I thought it over carefully yesterday and realized you and your brother were right. We can't let a family heirloom come between you three siblings and ruin your relationship. There's a banquet tomorrow, and Jade really wants to wear that necklace. Would you be willing to let her have it? I maintained a calm exterior, but internally, alarm bells were ringing. Why did Mom suddenly change her mind? Is she testing me, or does she genuinely mean it? When I remained silent for a long time, Jade grew impatient and shot me a warning glare. I snapped out of my daze and forced a half-hearted smile. Whatever Mother decides is fine with me. Seeing that I agreed, Mother immediately gestured for the butler to bring the necklace. Jade's eyes instantly locked onto the diamond necklace in the butler's hand. She eagerly reached for it. But her mother slapped her hand and scolded with faint sternness, "You've always been so impulsive since you were little, don't go damaging our family heirloom." Unfazed by the reprimand, Jade playfully stuck out her tongue and flashed an ingratiating smile. Then, her mother personally fastened the necklace around her neck. I stared intently at Jade, yet, after a long moment, she still showed no sign of change. Jade lowered her head, her fingers gently brushing over the sparkling diamonds, her eyes brimming with irrepressible excitement. "Thanks, Mom, I knew you were the best." She gave a triumphant little humph in my direction before heading back to her room, the necklace already around her neck. My mind was in complete turmoil. Wait, wasn't this the very necklace Mom used to trade her life for mine in our past life? That evening, my mother tiptoed into my room with cautious steps. She produced a dazzlingly exquisite necklace and placed it in my palm. "Iris, were you thinking I broke my promise to you?" Seeing the identical diamond necklace in her hand, my blood ran cold and my fingertips began to tremble. Just as I expected, she didn't let me off the hook. Seeing my dazed expression, Mom explained softly, "Silly child, the one I gave Jade was a custom-made replica. She can't tell the difference, it's good enough to fool her." She patted my hand, her voice trailing off. "I'll be straight with you, dear. This family heirloom actually symbolizes the head of the Chiao household. I'm giving you control of the Chiao family because I want to make up for all the hardship you've endured. Don't let your brother and sister sweet talk you." I feigned surprise on the surface, but inwardly sneered. Had I not lived an extra lifetime, I would have been utterly moved by now, convinced of her genuine sincerity toward me. But now, gazing at that necklace felt like staring at a venomous serpent coiled around my bones, stirring nothing but intense revulsion in my heart. "Mom, this makes it even harder for me to accept. If I take it, wouldn't it break my brother and sister's hearts?" Mother was growing impatient. "Of course they can. Do they dare defy my orders? Put it on quickly. My daughter is definitely the perfect one to wear this necklace." As the necklace drew closer and she was about to put it on me, Jade's sudden scream came from outside the door. "Mom, what's that in your hand?" I breathed a sigh of relief, but Mom flinched, instinctively hiding the necklace behind her back. But Jade had already seen it clearly. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her voice trembling with tears yet filled with rage. "My identity is fake, and now you're trying to pass off a fake necklace too. Am I only worthy of this worthless junk?" She took a deep breath, her words bursting forth with the desperation of someone with nothing left to lose. "Fine, since you all can't stand me, I'll get out of your hair right now. I'll disappear so you never have to look at me again. Happy now." Without another glance at her mother, she wiped her tears and bolted for the door. Seeing Jade's emotional outburst, Mom quickly shoved the necklace into my hands and rushed after her. I stuffed the necklace into my pocket and hurried after them. Just as I caught up, I saw Mom with a grave expression pulling Jade toward the storage room. "Jade, come here, I need to talk to you." Jade was wearing an elegant gown, but her neck, where the necklace should have been, was bare. She twisted her wrists, her voice brimming with grievance and defiance. "I won't listen. You just don't love me anymore. If I'm so unwanted in this family, then I'll leave." But in the end, she was no match for her mother, who half dragged, half pulled her inside. I tiptoed to the door, held my breath, and pressed my ear against it to eavesdrop. Mom lowered her voice deliberately, but her tone was urgent as she quickly revealed the truth to Jade. I clutched the necklace so tightly that its edges pierced my palm, drawing blood. "So that's how it is. Now I finally understand why she wanted to harm me. You fool. I'm telling you the truth. You are my biological daughter. Iris's paternity test was fabricated, so that's how it is." No wonder, Jade clearly hadn't expected this either, gasping in surprise. "But then why?" Mom shushed. "I can't tell you the exact reason right now, but just know that Mom loves you very much." Inside the room, Mom patiently coaxed Jade for a long time before she finally calmed down and stopped making a fuss. Outside the door, I felt as if I had been doused with a bucket of ice water, chilled from head to toe. My limbs so stiff I could barely move, so it was all a lie from the very beginning, all calculated. My heart raced as I silently processed this web of deceit. Just as I turned to leave, a cat sauntered over and affectionately rubbed against my feet. I looked down at it, and my gaze suddenly darkened. A bold and insane idea suddenly struck me. "Since you've so casually ruined my life for your own selfish desires, don't expect to get off easy either." Clutching the necklace in my hand, I decisively crouched down and carried the cat back into the room. I picked up the fake necklace Jade had tossed by the door, then plucked a few cat hairs and wound them around the chain. Next, I casually dropped the real heirloom on the carpet just outside the room, then I settled on the sofa with the docile kitten in my arms. I staged the scene to look perfectly natural, as if the cat hair had accidentally gotten tangled while I was playing with the kitten and holding the necklace at the same time. Sure enough, before long, after Mom had calmed Jade down, she came knocking on my door. She pushed the door open and first picked up the real necklace by the entrance, then she walked towards me, her sharp gaze fixed on the necklace in my hand, her tone probing. "Iris, have you been in your room this whole time?" I looked up with just the right amount of innocence on my face, one hand still gently stroking Snowball in my arms. Yes, Mom, I was just thinking about where to keep this necklace safe when this little kitten suddenly showed up at my door. It looked so adorable that I brought it in to play for a while. Here's the necklace, giving it back to you. As I spoke, I made a move to hand over the necklace. But my movement halted the moment I noticed a few white cat hairs stuck to it. And my face instantly flushed with panic and guilt. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mom, I completely forgot how much cats shed. Let me clean this right now. Frantically, I reached to pluck the cat hairs off the necklace, looking like I was about to burst into tears. Mom approached with a frown, clearly displeased. How could you be so careless? This heirloom is priceless. You shouldn't be playing around with the pets while holding it. I kept apologizing meekly, but inside I was panicking. Jade might not recognize whether the necklace was real, but Mom definitely would. If she sees through my bait and switch, the entire plan will fall apart. It could even alert the enemy and lead to far worse consequences. I need to do something to interrupt her train of thought and completely dispel her suspicions. A sudden idea struck me. With an ingratiating smile, I deliberately looped the fake necklace around the cat's neck. But look, Mom, don't the diamonds on this necklace just match the kitten's eyes perfectly? Why don't we try putting it on the kitten? As I said this, I started to fasten the necklace clasp. Mom nearly screamed, her face instantly pale as she rushed forward and grabbed my wrist in a death grip. Her eyes were filled with terror and a desperate plea to stop me, as if I were about to commit some unspeakable horror. Her violent reaction took me by surprise. I stared at her wide-eyed, completely at a loss. Mom seemed to realize she had overreacted. She took a deep breath, forced down her panic, and offered a strained smile as she explained, "Don't be ridiculous. The Chia family heirloom is not some trinket for a pet. This is utterly unacceptable." I nodded blankly, my face a mixture of hurt from the scolding and half-understanding, as I regretfully patted Snowball's head. "Oh, I understand now, Mom," but inwardly, I heaved a huge sigh of relief. It seems I guessed right. The eerie power of this life exchange necklace works on animals too. Just then, Jade walked in upon hearing the commotion, taking in the scene before her. A faint smirk played on her lips as she looked at us with mocking eyes. "Mom, since my sister is so curious, why not put the fake one on the cat?" She shot me a meaningful glance. After all, this fake thing only deserves the same status as a pet. I fought hard to suppress the corners of my mouth that were about to twitch, pretending I completely missed the sarcasm and provocation in her words. Instead, I played along with her words and put on an expression that suggested I thought it was a brilliant idea. "That's right, Mom, think of it as the kitten basking in its owner's glory, and at the banquet, we can have my sister wear the real necklace while holding the kitten as she makes her entrance. How charming that mother-daughter pairing would look. My sister would undoubtedly be the center of attention." Jade pondered my words, a smug smile curling at the corners of her mouth. She tilted her chin up haughtily and extended her hand toward me as if it were her birthright. "Exactly, at least you know your place. Hand over the real necklace." After learning the truth, she reverted to her entitled, high and mighty demeanor around me, not even bothering to pretend anymore. Still, all of this unfolded exactly as I had anticipated. Just as I thought, Mom never told her the real secret of the necklace. Even in our past life, when Jade was that obsessive, Mom never revealed the truth about the life exchange. There must be some kind of rule preventing her from speaking about it openly, and now, after the scare I just gave her, Mom seems to have dropped the issue of whether the necklace was swapped, at least for the moment. Just as I was about to hand the necklace to Jade, she quickly stopped me again. "Jade, stop fooling around." Mom's voice carried an unmistakable sternness. "I already promised to give this necklace to Iris. Do you want your mother to go back on her word?" Jade stamped her foot in frustration. "Mom, you promised." My mother turned her back to me, shooting Jade a look of sheer disappointment. "Keep this up and you're staying home from the party. You need to seriously think about your behavior." Jade was stunned by her mother's unusually harsh tone, pouting in hurt silence but not daring to utter another word. Without a word, Mother then took the necklace from Jade's hand and fastened it around the cat's neck. She then turned, took the cat hair-covered necklace from my hands, and placed it around my neck. This time I obediently bowed my head and let her proceed. I knew the real life exchange necklace had already been placed around the cat's neck by Mother's own hand. Mother examined the necklace around my neck, nodded with satisfaction, her gaze growing increasingly tender. Beneath that tenderness lurked greed and anticipation on the verge of being fulfilled. "It truly looks beautiful, a perfect match for my Iris. This necklace was made just for you." She patted my hand. "Wear it to the banquet. If you like cats, you can hold it too. It'll make you seem more approachable." I smiled and was about to thank her when Jade chimed in disapprovingly. "No way, Snowball is my cat. I've raised her for 9 years. Why should she be someone else's prop?" She darted over and snatched the cat from my arms without a word, glaring at me as if I were her mortal enemy. Mom was clearly displeased with her attitude, her brow furrowed as she was about to scold her. I quickly linked arms with Mom, smiled sweetly, and tried to smooth things over by saying, "It's all right, Mom, so the kitten's name is Snowball. My little sister has been taking such good care of her." A 9-year-old cat is considered quite old, isn't it? Jade let out a contemptuous snort and answered boastfully, "Of course, Snowball is a purebred Persian cat with a noble pedigree. You don't know anything. What a country bumpkin." I didn't argue back, just looked at Snowball in her arms and gave a knowing smile. A 9-year-old cat is roughly equivalent to a 52-year-old human about the same age as my mom. I'm so curious, what will this life exchange bring? But beneath the calm surface, undercurrents were swirling. On the morning of the banquet, I deliberately came down for breakfast later than usual. When I entered the dining room, they seemed to be almost finished with their meal. My brother glanced up at me, his tone dripping with undisguised sarcasm. "Well, look who's acting like a proper young lady now. Quite the grand air, sleeping in this late. Don't tell me you expect everyone to wait on you." The moment he finished speaking, Jade, sitting beside him, let out an unmistakable snort of laughter. She then playfully swatted her brother's arm, her tone affectionate. "Brother, don't say that. Maybe our sister just got back and isn't used to our family's schedule yet." The smugness and provocation in her eyes were practically overflowing. It seems Jade couldn't wait to share the news about me not being the Chiao family's biological daughter with her dear brother. Now they're the real family, and I'm nothing but an outsider. Mother, seated at the head of the table, remained completely silent. Her gaze latched onto me the moment I appeared at the restaurant entrance and never let go. I pretended not to notice, offering an awkward, apologetic smile as I made my way to my seat. "Sorry I'm late. I was so excited about the banquet tonight that I could hardly sleep last night." As I explained, I picked up my utensils and casually glanced up, only to meet my mother's unwavering gaze. I touched my face in confusion, my tone innocent. "Mom, why are you staring at me? Is there something on my face?" Her eyes flickered for a moment before she forced a smile, but her tone carried a subtle urgency. "No, just checking if you slept well. Did you feel uncomfortable anywhere last night?" I sneered inwardly while maintaining a thoughtful expression. "Slept quite well actually. The bed was soft and the surroundings were peaceful." I paused, frowning slightly as I gently massaged my shoulders and neck. Then, I recounted my experiences from the previous life, mixing truth with a bit of fiction. "It's just, I don't know if it's because I was too excited and didn't sleep well, but I feel like all my bones are kind of achy and weak. No matter how I sit or lie down, I just can't get comfortable. It feels really strange." Mom looked at me skeptically for a moment, as if trying to spot even the slightest hint of a wrinkle or sagging skin. I lowered my head and took small sips of porridge, carefully avoiding eye contact with her. Eventually, she seemed to accept that the name change would take time to show effect, and finally stopped pressing the matter, saying quietly, "You're probably just a bit nervous. Relax and stick with Mom tonight." Just then, Snowball darted past my feet, moving with a barely perceptible quickness. As evening approached and the banquet was about to begin, we were all making final preparations. Mother didn't wear the backless evening gown she had originally planned. Instead, she changed into a velvet gown and even draped an extravagant shawl over it, covering herself from neck to wrist. She claimed she was feeling a bit under the weather and wanted to avoid catching a chill, but as I helped adjust her shawl, my sharp eyes caught a glimpse. When she slightly raised her left hand, the heavy shawl slipped down just a bit. On the exposed skin of her wrist, there seemed to be a few faint, white hairs, suppressing the storm of emotions inside. I calmly straightened her shawl without saying a word. Afterwards, I checked the real necklace around Snowball's neck, adjusting its fit to make sure it wouldn't slip off. I could feel my mother's gaze fixed on me the entire time, especially when I touched the necklace. Her scrutiny became almost tangible, but now I wasn't the least bit worried about giving myself away. I put a lot of effort into my makeup today to make sure this grand performance goes off without a hitch. Instead of trying to cover anything up, I deliberately added a touch of weariness and pallor. As long as I can fool Mom into believing the soul transference is progressing smoothly in me, then, even if there are slight abnormalities, she'll likely dismiss them as side effects of the ritual, without immediately questioning the authenticity of the necklace. Sure enough, Mom studied me carefully for a moment. Her gaze shifted several times between my slightly haggard face and the necklace around my neck. Her tense shoulders relaxed slightly as the wariness and doubt in her eyes gradually gave way to certainty and anticipation. She stepped closer, giving me one last instruction in a tone that brooked no argument. "Iris, remember what Mother said. At tonight's banquet, you must not remove that necklace under any circumstances. Not even for a moment. Do you understand?" Watching the undisguised greed gleaming in her eyes, I nodded meekly and offered an artless smile. "Don't worry, Mom, I'll remember. It's such a beautiful necklace, I wouldn't dream of taking it off." tonight's charity gala has brought together many prominent entrepreneurs, with one arm linked through my brother's and the other holding my hand. Mom gracefully navigated the crowd of guests, her face adorned with a poised and elegant smile. Meanwhile, Jade was cradling her beloved Snowball. The subtle sparkle of diamonds around Snowball's neck drew repeated admiration from several society ladies who adored small animals. Their praise fed her vanity immensely, bringing a triumphant, radiant smile to her face. Meanwhile, Mother continued introducing me to her friends, her voice brimming with pride and affection. "This is Iris, the daughter I've just been reunited with. She's been through so much hardship. Now that she's back, I must make it up to her." Every time she introduced me, she would deliberately stroke the necklace around my neck, as if it were a testament to our mother-daughter bond. Naturally, the guests all praised the necklace's exquisite beauty and my mother's generosity, but when their eyes fell upon my face, there was occasionally a flicker of barely concealed contempt. After all, while my aura is quite refined today, my complexion seems a bit dull. In such a setting, I don't stand out as much as my radiant mother and the vibrant, flamboyant Jade beside me. That's exactly the effect Mom was going for. She needs me as a point of reference to highlight her impending rebirth. Midway through the banquet, the charity auction began, and the atmosphere grew even more lively. As a representative of women entrepreneurs, my mother was invited to give a speech on stage. She adjusted her shawl and gracefully walked to the center of the stage, under the spotlight. She spoke eloquently and carried herself with poise. But just as she reached the emotional climax of her speech and spread her arms wide, something unexpected happened. Perhaps her gesture was too sweeping, or perhaps the clasp of her shawl had already been loose. That heavy shawl actually slipped right off her shoulders. Instantly, a wave of soft gasps and hushed whispers rippled through the audience. Under the spotlight, the velvet gown my mother wore was completely exposed to everyone's view. That in itself wasn't a big deal. The crucial thing was, under the harsh lighting, people could clearly see the skin on her exposed neck and cheeks formed a startling contrast with the skin on her arms. Her face and neck remained smooth and firm, just like a young girl's, but her fingers, all the way up to her upper arms, were covered in rough wrinkles and faint light spots. Even more astonishing, there were several distinct white hairs growing on the outer side of her forearms. Oh my God, what's wrong with President Chiao's hands? What's that, hair? Am I seeing things? Her face and hands, they look completely different, like they belong to two separate people. Mom realized something was wrong too. She jerked her hand back in a panic, frantically trying to pull up her shawl, but it was too late. Countless gazes, some shocked, some curious, some downright malicious, pierced through her like needles. Her face turned deathly pale as she stood on the stage, completely at a loss. All her previous grace and composure had vanished in an instant. My brother and Jade were also stunned. My brother snapped out of it, rushed onto the stage, picked up the shawl and draped it over our mother. He tried to calm the guests, but the situation had already spiraled out of control. As for me, I stood quietly among the crowd below the stage, gently stroking Snowball, who had somehow silently slipped to my feet. Snowball gently rubbed against my leg, its diamond collar shimmering under the light. I looked down at it. Snowball was in remarkably good shape, bright-eyed, glossy-furred, and agile, showing no signs of being a 9-year-old cat. Its paws were especially striking, with plump pink pads that looked exceptionally healthy and strong. I looked up at the woman on stage, disheveled and desperately trying to conceal that grotesque arm of hers with a shawl. Her panicked gaze swept over the crowd and locked directly with mine. "Mother, this compensation you so meticulously arranged. This maternal love you forced upon me, now I'm returning it all to you, with interest. Do you like it?" The banquet ended in chaos, with a clamor of voices and the blaring sirens of police cars. Under the spotlight, the eerie appearance of Mother's arm created a horrifying contrast with her still youthful and smooth face. This chilling scene was instantly shared across the entire social network through the phones of countless guests. Public opinion erupted into an uproar. With rampant speculation swirling everywhere, the rumors ranged from rare skin diseases to even more sensational tales of dark magic. To prevent the situation from spiraling further out of control, the organizers had no choice but to call the police. My mother was taken away by the swiftly arriving police to assist with the investigation. She tried to wrap herself tightly in her shawl, but the sheer terror and humiliation in her eyes, combined with the way everyone around her recoiled, had already branded her with shame. Jade seemed to finally snap out of the shock from this sudden upheaval. Her face was deathly pale, her gaze first drifting aimlessly after her mother being taken away. She whirled around to face me, her eyes brimming with suspicion and terror. She rushed toward me in a few quick strides, her voice sharp with agitation. "It's you, Iris. This has to be your doing. What did you do to Mom?" My eyes widened, my face a perfect picture of innocence and panic. my voice trembling with just the right amount of quiver. Sis, what are you talking about? I don't know anything. How could Mom become like that? I'm so scared. As I spoke, I instinctively held Snowball tighter in my arms, as if seeking some comfort. A few lingering guests were still around, casting curious glances in our direction. Marcus's face turned ashen as he grabbed the emotionally distraught Jade and hissed under his breath. Enough! Haven't you embarrassed us enough? We'll talk about this at home. His voice was thick with frustration and helplessness, clearly indicating that the situation had spiraled far beyond his comprehension or control. Just then, a police officer approached with a stern expression. You must be Ms. Serena's children. We'll need you to come down to the station with us as well. We need to ask a few questions about your mother's daily routine. The three of us were then taken to separate interrogation rooms. Throughout the police questioning, I maintained the persona of a naive daughter who had only recently been reunited with her family and knew nothing of its secrets. My voice trembled as I expressed my fear and concern about my mother's health condition. Officer. What are those things on my mother's hands? They look terrifying. Is this condition hereditary? I don't want to end up like that. By the end, my eyes were red and I was trembling uncontrollably. Seeing this, the officer softened his tone and reassured her. Miss Iris, there's no need to be so nervous. We're conducting an investigation. Just tell us truthfully, have you noticed any unusual behavior from your mother recently? Or anything peculiar she might have come into contact with? I tried to look like I was searching my memory, then shook my head blankly. No, Mom treats me very well. It's just, she's particularly fixated on this necklace. I nervously touched the replica around my neck and murmured timidly. She said it's a family heirloom and insisted I wear it at all times, never taking it off. Beyond that, I really don't know anything else. I haven't been back for long, so there's still much I don't understand. I fully embodied the role of a victim with limited information and an overprotective mother. In contrast, the questioning of Jade and Marcus was far more complex. They couldn't explain the bizarre changes in their mother's physical condition. Under police questioning, they also hinted at underlying family tensions stemming from my return and the ownership of the necklace. They even revealed the truth that I'm not a Chiao by blood. But this only made the whole affair seem more like a farce born of wealthy family drama. During the subsequent investigation and interrogation, faced with irrefutable evidence, scientific testing, and the pressure of potentially facing more serious charges, Mother's psychological defenses finally crumbled. To protect herself, or rather to seek leniency, she was forced to partially confess the eerie nature of the family heirloom necklace, admitting it possessed some life transference capability. She confessed to a momentary lapse in judgment, driven by the desire to regain her youth through this method. She then set her sights on me, a young, attractive scholarship student, luring me to her home under the pretense of reconnecting with long-lost relatives. Yet she vehemently denied knowing how it worked, blaming everything on an evil heirloom passed down through generations. Given the unusual nature of the case and its supernatural elements, in the end, Mom was formally detained on charges including practicing illegal dark arts that endangered herself and others. Not only did she require intensive ideological re-education, I was also instructed to collaborate with relevant state secret research institutions to study the necklace and its effects. The goal was to find ways to neutralize or control it, preventing further harm to people. I know that the so-called reversal antidote is likely nothing but a mirage. The curse of this life exchange necklace is overwhelmingly potent. Once activated, it's nearly irreversible. For the rest of her life, Mother will live in endless agony and under constant surveillance, burdened by those aged and grotesque arms. This torment may be even more excruciating for her than direct punishment. After this ordeal, the Chiao family completely collapsed. Mother was utterly disgraced. The Chiao group's stock price plummeted, and internal morale was in turmoil. The brother and Jade, with their mediocre abilities, were completely incapable of stabilizing the situation during the crisis. Moreover, as immediate family members of the dark arts manipulator, they faced severe public condemnation and were abandoned by their business partners. Soon after, through a joint removal by other board members, they were completely ousted from the core of the Chiao family's power structure. The wealth and status the Chiao family had accumulated over many years vanished into thin air in a remarkably short period. The once glorious Chiao family, a household of immense wealth and prestige, has now completely fallen from grace, leaving behind nothing but a bizarre and lamentable tale. As for me, armed with my mother's own confession of her crimes and the protection of the law, I successfully secured the compensation I rightfully deserved from what remained of the Chiao family's legitimate assets. I have finally and completely severed all ties with that family, a nest of hypocrisy and scheming. After the verdict was announced, I stood at the courthouse entrance, watching Jade and my brother emerge looking utterly defeated and dejected. The looks they gave me were filled with resentment. Yet there was nothing they could do. The sunlight bathed me in its warm, gentle glow. I took a deep breath of the free air, feeling an unprecedented sense of relief. No way, I've returned to school and reverted to my original surname, Irishan. The shadows of the past have lifted, and the life that is truly my own is just beginning. Story 2. In my past life, I spent 10,000 years forging 9 celestial swords for my 9 female disciples. After they ascended to immortality, they ambushed me during my heavenly tribulation and sealed me in the abyss. Before I could utter a single word of protest, they stripped me of my immortal bones, stole my divine weapons, and severed my celestial destiny. Landon, this is what you owe our junior brother. How dare you claim he lacks the celestial blessing? Landon, you shouldn't have coveted my spectral form. You brought this fate upon yourself. Everything we've achieved is by our own hands. You had no part in it. The 9 who stole my celestial destiny triggered a forbidden seal upon me, dooming us all to perish together. When my eyes opened again, I'd returned to the day my sect sent me forth to recruit disciples. This time, I'd rather take in a few stray cats and dogs than deal with them. Landon, your master will ascend in a year. You shall lead the Tianyuan sect's disciple recruitment this time. Gazing at my crimson-robed master above me, I choked out, "Yes, master." The woman in red said no more, flicking her sleeve to teleport me away. The Tianyuan sect recruits new disciples every 3 years to replenish their ranks. In my past life, I took 9 divine maidens as my disciples. For the first stop, I chose the Phoenix imperial capital once again. The immortal has arrived, someone shouted abruptly, drawing all eyes toward the celestial dragon boat in the sky. With a single step, I ascended to the central platform and immediately spotted Evelina at the forefront of the crowd. She was the 9th princess of the divine Phoenix, her icy demeanor making her unapproachable. She's as beautiful as ever. Doesn't she have her pride? Then today I'll crush this thing to dust. Spiritual root test. I spoke expressionlessly without glancing her way. Only a handful of candidates met my standards during testing. Evelina, with unwavering confidence, she placed her hand on the glowing orb atop the stone pedestal. The luminous sphere suddenly erupted with 2 blinding white beams. It's actually the legendary heavenly spirit root. As the exclamations faded, the white light abruptly ceased. The people of Divine Phoenix Dynasty watched me nervously, while Evelina remained completely unfazed, eliminated. As the words fell, the sight of Evelina's contorted face filled me with indescribable satisfaction. The royal faction still tried to plead for mercy. After all, the monarchy always received 10 allocated spots. I pointed toward Evelina's direction. Just add this and it'll be perfect. The royal family breathed a sigh of relief as Evelina resumed her haughty demeanor. She knew her divine Phoenix constitution was formidable, and that I wouldn't give up easily. What she didn't know was that the divine Phoenix physique was truly peerless in this world. Both awakening and subsequent cultivation demand tremendous resources. A single awakening alone requires a master-level expert to perform spiritual purification. Moreover, her personal cultivation consumes resources equivalent to 10 ordinary practitioners, with the addition of 8 other divine maidens. Half of Tianyuan sect's resources are devoted to sustaining these 9 individuals. In return, all 9 of them betrayed the Tianyuan sect for the sake of a beggar. As I stepped past her, Evelina seemed unsteady on her feet. When I chose a dog over her, she completely lost her composure. She pointed at me and cried, "Landon, you'd rather pick a dog than me." I masked my hatred while observing the black dog. Landon, act. I never need others to tell me what to do. Evelina was about to say more, but Gustav stopped her. "Evelina, how many times must I tell you to stop being so willful? If you upset the immortal elder again, even I won't be able to protect you." After all, Gustav was a former elder of Tianyuan sect. I must show him some respect. Otherwise, had she dared provoke the immortal elder, no one would have questioned me executing her on the spot. Feeling wronged, she clutched Gustav's sleeve with teary eyes and pleaded, "Don't worry, father. Even if Landon refuses to take me as his disciple, I'm certain countless immortal sects would gladly welcome me." Hearing this, I grinned from ear to ear. "Big Black, from now on you'll be my first disciple under Landon." I bestowed upon the black dog all the initiation gifts I'd once given Evelina in my past life, leaving the onlookers drooling with envy. Evelina watched the treasure land on a dog, looking as if she'd lost the most precious thing in the world, but I won't indulge her anymore. I patted the big black dog's head. "Let's go, Blackie, Blackie, your whole damn family calls everything Blackie." The moment I left, 3 women descended from the sky. "Senior sister," the trio spoke in unison, filling Evelina with joy. I told them about my peculiar experiences. In the end, they came to one conclusion: I had been reborn just like them. Meanwhile, the me they spoke of had already arrived at Crouching Tiger Mountain. At the foot of Crouching Tiger Mountain, Several black-clad figures were harassing a young girl. The girl's tattered clothes barely covered her body, only her eyes held a spark of life as she spotted my arrival. Dashing toward me with hurried steps, she dropped to her knees, pleading, "Master, Immortal One, save me." Yet I remained unmoved, addressing the crowd, "If you want to fight, take it elsewhere, don't pollute my sight." The black-clad man dared not disobey me, his eyes fixed warily on the girl in the distance. I stepped past where the girl had been and approached the stone monument inscribed with Dragon Tiger Mountain in bold characters. Beneath the monument, a lone blade of grass swayed in the breeze. Little did I know, this very girl would one day become a swordswoman renowned for leaving trails of blood in her wake. A single leaf can kill, a blade of grass can sever all things. I produced a spirit stone, yet the sprout remained unmoved. When I offered a vial of spiritual elixir, she stirred faintly. With an entire bucket of elixir, she swayed unsteadily, leaves trembling. I placed it in the bucket and sighed, "Let me give you a name. From now on, you'll be called Little Grass." Little Grass stood frozen, thinking to itself, "Is this person really that casual about naming things?" The big black dog on the ground nodded its head in solemn agreement. "You're absolutely right. That's just how he is." That's exactly how I ended up being called Big Black Dog, the ragged clothed girl. Noticing my good mood, cautiously approached and knelt before me. "I beg the immortal master to take me as your disciple. I, Mirabelle, vow to serve by your side." I gazed at this ethereal girl, my second disciple, Mirabelle. In our past life, she was the most obedient, yet when it came to ruthlessness, she rivaled even my first disciple, Evelina. I still can't forget what she said to me before dying. "Landon, you shouldn't have coveted my shadowborn physique. You brought this fate upon yourself. Those were your words, just don't come to regret them." I waved my hand dismissively. "We were never meant to be master and disciple. With your shadowborn constitution, you'll undoubtedly achieve great things." As I finished speaking, I saw the disappointment in Mirabelle's eyes. She's sharper than anyone else. She's still wet behind the ears, making her prime prey in others' eyes. The only viable solution is to become my disciple and gain my protection, once she comes into her power. No enemy will daunt her. After I left, the black-clad figures closed in with sinister grins. "Mirabelle, so you've been Aen's spirit vessel all along, keeping secrets from us. Aen's spirit vessel makes the perfect dual cultivation partner. How about this? Spend just 1 month, no, a year cultivating with each of us, and we'll let you go." Mirabelle finally understood. I'd exposed her special constitution to get revenge. "You're courting death. Do you even know who I am, the future Nether Empress?" The black-clad figures burst into mocking laughter. "If you're really the Empress, then I, Huhan-san, will become legendary. If word gets out that I slept with the future Empress, my name will shake the entire cultivation world." Enough talk, seize her first. At the critical moment, several streaks of light came streaking through the air. With a swift twist of their heads, the men went completely still. Mirabelle spotted them and rushed over joyfully. "Eldest sister, sixth junior sister. Thank you for saving me." From Mirabelle, I learned that I'd taken a blade of grass as my disciple. They were indignant, thinking I'd willingly sunk into depravity. After all, in this lifetime they all possessed cultivation techniques. Naturally they could reclaim their former glory. A bizarre scene unfolded on the street. A man, a dog, and a blade of grass. A big black dog balanced a large bucket on its head, with a tiny sprout growing inside. The bizarre sight drew crowds, even halting a wedding procession's palanquin. That's when I spotted Daphne, my third disciple from a past life. Present-day Daphne radiated triumph, glowing with celestial joy. Little did she know, this wasn't a path to immortality, but a road to ruin. Yet I had no intention of helping her. I wanted to see the despair in her eyes. Our gazes met, yet I looked straight through her as if she were invisible. Daphne was so furious she leapt straight out of the red bridal sedan. In her past life, she had poor innate talent, so she trained day and night just to keep up with her senior and junior sisters. Yet her former master not only withheld encouragement, but claimed her efforts were futile due to her lack of natural aptitude. She became the laughingstock of the entire sect, so when they conspired to ambush me, she was the first to voice approval and strike. Pity they couldn't finish me off, but once she obtains that treasure, it'll purify her spiritual roots and make her stronger than ever. "Landon, long time no see, here to take me as your disciple." As if noticing her for the first time, I shook my head and said, "You've got the wrong person. I don't even know you. How could I possibly take you as my disciple?" Daphne froze, pointing at me and murmuring, "That's impossible. How could you change like this? You used to call me Daphne." That was me being utterly blind. Before she could explain, someone pulled her back into the sedan chair. "Daphne, if you dare offend the Celestial Gate's immortal elder again, I'll call off the marriage alliance." After speaking, the Daphne family representatives bowed in apology to me. I shook my head and gave them one final warning. The Daphne family carried the bridal sedan onward until they reached a chasm. A chasm? Are you trying to sacrifice me to the abyss god? Daphne roared in fury, but her hands and feet were bound, and someone even gagged her with rags to silence her. Her eyes were bloodshot, finally filled with regret. The Daphne family wasn't sending her to the fire cloud sect for marriage, but as a sacrifice to the abyssal god. Her body was covered in ritual arrays, twisted beyond recognition. She shifted her gaze toward me, eyes pleading for help. At this moment, I sent her a mental message. This is the path you chose yourself. Don't blame others. My own choice, she murmured to herself. The truth undeniable. In my past life, after taking her as my disciple, I helped the Daphne family complete their celestial grade cultivation manual. With the complete manual, there was naturally no need to sacrifice to the abyss god anymore. As for that so-called treasure for cleansing spiritual roots, it was all just a ruse, she wanted to explain, but the words caught in her throat. Someone noticed her face turning crimson and kindly removed the rag from her mouth. Seizing the chance, she pleaded with me, Master, save me. I was wrong, you were wrong. It's too late now. When you led your fellow disciples to ambush me, you couldn't take your eyes off the treasures I carried. The Daphne family turned their gaze toward me. And I said expressionlessly, you're not wrong, you're afraid to die, but what's that got to do with me? In utter despair, Daphne hurled curses at me, my fists clenched tight, yet I couldn't bring myself to strike a dying man, but I didn't need to say a word. The Daphne family took care of it for me. Daphne was cast into the abyss, howls echoing behind her. Within moments, Evelina and the others descended from their longswords. I turned to the edge of the abyss and shouted downward. The celestial sign has appeared. Come forth, Daphne, someone called out. It was Evelina. I ignored Daphne, focusing instead on the wooden log beneath her. With a beckoning gesture, the log flew into my grasp. The log's threatening voice echoed through my consciousness. You'd better not be lying to me, kid, or you'll regret it. That soft, mellow voice carried no threat whatsoever. I wanted nothing to do with Evelina and her crew, heading straight to the next location to recruit disciples. When Evelina's group saw me ignoring them completely, who knows what schemes started brewing in their minds. As Daphne watched my retreating figure, she seemed to see the master who once shielded her with his own body, but now it seems she's lost track of the person. Soon after, several people gathered together, whispering about something unknown. I hadn't gone far when I faintly caught words about the mandate of heaven. To avoid alerting anyone, I quietly slipped away with a tree, a plant, and a dog in tow. A month later, I returned to the sect with my newly recruited disciples. I went to pay my respects to the master immediately, only to unexpectedly encounter 9 individuals, those very 9 I wished I could slaughter with my own hands. Master, why are they here? The coldness in my tone immediately alerted Master Blanche, and Evelina's group sensed something was wrong. My master froze momentarily at the sight of the plants and animals around me, then quickly explained. You've reached the nascent soul stage, yet you don't have a single disciple under your tutelage. Today I'll decide for you. All 9 of them shall become your disciples. Train them well. Do they still want to become my disciples? Did heavens will guide them here too? I don't get it. I've already rejected them outright. They could have just gone to the flaming cloud sect instead. Landon, my master flashed to my side in an instant, pressing a finger to my forehead before withdrawing it after confirming nothing was amiss. I want nothing to do with these 9 individuals, tossing them an icy remark. You may join any peak, but my 9 immortals peak will never accept you. My master stepped behind me and flicked her sleeve, sending the group away. She unfurled her sleeve like a canopy, creating a crimson hidden space. I stared dumbfounded at her faintly visible figure, swallowing hard without realizing it, but moments later, she was clad in white robes again, her expression turning icy. Stop staring, or I'll gouge your eyes out. What exactly did you mean when you said you wouldn't take these 9 as disciples? Only when the wooden figure nodded did I slowly begin to speak. Master, have you ever heard the will of heaven? Before I could finish, a hand clamped over my mouth. Others might not understand, but she knew all too well. Rumors say the reason no one has achieved immortality on this continent for hundreds of millennia may lie with the heavenly Tao above us. The heavenly Tao is meant to be impartial, but if someone were to control this heavenly Tao, its impartiality would no longer be guaranteed. She clearly didn't expect me to know these secrets. The way she looked at me made it seem like I'd become a completely different person. In this lifetime, no matter the cost, I will help my master achieve immortality. Landon, be honest with me, where did you hear these things? My master's voice was firm, her gaze locked onto my eyes. After a moment's thought, her face hardened as she suddenly said, Don't tell me you've died once and been reborn. I couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. I truthfully reported everything I'd overheard from their conversation, even sharing my next steps. If there's one person in this world who would never betray me, it's my master. But to my surprise, after hearing me out, my master said solemnly, if they're truly acting according to the heavenly Tao's decree, then we absolutely cannot expel them from the Tianyuan sect. A sudden realization struck me, could this be related to the ancestors' legacy, the human sword? The human sword, you mean this artifact? With a flip of her palm, Blanche materialized 9 celestial swords in her hand. My mouth watered uncontrollably as I stared at the celestial sword in her hand. Bit by bit, I froze solid like an ice sculpture. Only after several breaths did I return to normal. I pulled out an array diagram from my robe. The two originated as one, destined to merge in the next instant. Thunder roared across the heavens as if to annihilate this world. Blanche and I exerted our full strength, taking a quarter hour to subdue them both, leaving the formation diagram behind. I departed my master's cavern abode. Outside the cave abode, besides my 8 disciples, stood my longtime rival, junior brother Landon. I'll be taking these disciples under the heavenly sword peak's wing. That suspicious grin of yours, what mischief are you plotting? Nothing at all, I'm merely pleased for the Grand Elder's sake. The Elder observed the shift in my expression but said little, leaving only a threatening remark, Junior Landon, are these your new disciples? What a bunch of misfits. Yet even as he mocked, he couldn't hide his astonishment at their unusual potential. Facing a rival for the sect leadership, he dared not underestimate me in the slightest. All 9 members of Evelina's group turned to stare at me, realizing I had no intention of taking them as disciples. Some were filled with regret, others with resentment, and a few with sheer unwillingness to accept it. I departed with my few chosen apprentices in tow. I bestowed cultivation techniques upon them. With Woodenhead providing additional guidance, I turned back to enter seclusion, sensing the celestial secrets of this lifetime had shifted. 3 months passed in a blink, and soon the day of the sect grand competition arrived. Though Evelina's group made rapid cultivation progress, it paled in comparison to their past life's pace. After some thought, I realized the Grand Elder simply couldn't provide enough resources for all 9 cultivators. The first match pits 9 Immortals Peak against Heavenly Sword Peak. Zephyr versus Daphne, ranked 3rd among mystical insects and nurtured with unlimited resources. Zephyr has reached the 8th level of body refinement. Its opponent Daphne only reached the 7th level of body refinement, 1 tier below Zephyr's cultivation. To my shock, they broke all dueling protocols by pulling out a Mystic tier artifact. How shameless of Daphne, using a Mystic tier weapon against a mere insect. Even the disciples below the arena couldn't stomach this unfairness. Sensing my agitation, Wood sent me a mental message telling me to wait for the show. How careless of me to forget Wood's teachings. In the following matches, 9 Immortals Peak achieved complete victory. The Grand Elder's face darkened with displeasure. This sect's rookie tournament concerns the reputation of every peak. The once dominant Heavenly Sword Peak was relegated to 2nd place. Failing to secure a single victory against the 9 Immortals Peak, the Grand Elder summoned the 9 disciples to demand an explanation. Having conspired beforehand, the 9 claimed their spiritual constitutions hadn't awakened yet. After thorough examination, the Grand Elder was overjoyed. Each of his 9 disciples possesses extraordinary constitutions. Any one of them could potentially become an empress if unleashed upon the world. But the ensuing challenge lies in awakening their latent potential. The more formidable the constitution, the greater the resources required, especially for divine phoenix constitutions. Only someone at the sect master's level could handle such awakening rituals. He went to see the sect leader, only to be turned away at the door. He visited the herb peak, only to find all the high-grade spiritual herbs had been requisitioned. He headed to the artifact peak, but its stockpile of premium materials had been completely depleted. It felt like the heavens were playing a cruel joke on him. Ever since taking these 9 as disciples, he felt misfortune clinging to him like a shadow. When the Elder returned and the 9 heard the verdict, their hearts turned to ice. After the Elder left, some began contemplating switching allegiances. The first person they thought of was me. In my past life, I devoted all my resources to their cultivation, enabling their skills to advance by leaps and bounds, but now, deprived of cultivation resources, their progress has inevitably slowed. When will they ever catch up to and surpass me? This is utterly unacceptable to them. Upon returning to Jirshin Peak, I suddenly caught sight of 9 figures standing at the temple entrance. The 9 became visibly agitated upon seeing me, their faces etched with apparent remorse. Master, forgive us, we were wrong, though their words spoke of regret. Their arrogant expressions made my skin crawl. If you're willing to provide us cultivation resources, we'll be dutiful children to you. Never thought I'd hear the word filial piety from their mouths. Their innocent smiles reminded me of when they cast me into the abyss. They extracted my immortal bones, stole my divine weapons, and robbed me of my celestial destiny. Landon, this is what you owe our junior brother. How dare you claim he lacks the Taoist potential, Landon? You shouldn't have schemed against my in-spirit physique. You've brought this fate upon yourself. Everything we've achieved today came from our own efforts. You had no part in it, but I never once plotted against them. That so-called junior brother of theirs was just a beggar they picked up on the roadside, a beggar dreaming of joining the Tianyuan sect. Pure delusion. I watched their charade coldly. No need. I already have disciples. Evelina's expression darkened instantly. They're just a bunch of fur-covered beasts. How could they possibly compare to us, Master? We're destined to become empresses. Investing in us now is a guaranteed win. Landon, even if you reject us, plenty of sex would kill to have us. I was about to speak when several voices cut in first. The Blackhound scoffed. You worthless losers think you're worthy of being our master's disciples. Little Grass taunted. Come at me all together. I can take on 10 of you at once. Woody curled his lip. I won't even need to lift a finger. One breath from me, and you're done for. The group seethed with rage, yet they were utterly powerless against these so-called fur-and-scales creatures. They're no empresses now. Even with cultivation techniques, they'd have to start from scratch. Gritting my teeth, I grabbed the Blackhound and gave it a thorough thrashing. If I don't discipline it soon, it'll lead all my junior disciples astray. The Blackhound spoke in human tongue. Master, stop hitting me, at least tell me what I did wrong. All 9 members of Evelina turned to look at me with confusion in their eyes. What's wrong? Look what you've done to your juniors. Now all they talk about is I can take on 10 opponents at once. If I don't discipline you now, you'll eventually betray your master and trample over me. The disciples protested in unison. We'd never dare, Master. The speaker meant no harm, but the listener took it to heart. The expressions of Evelina and the other 8 instantly darkened. She cut in, stop pretending, Landon, we know you've been reborn too. If you hadn't declared junior disciple Typhon lacked immortal potential and taken him as your pupil back then, would I have turned against you? Watching her stubbornly argue, I couldn't help but sneer. Evelina, I've never stooped to lying. I refuse to take Typhon as my disciple both to uphold sect rules and because he's beneath my standards. If you're so fond of him, keep him in your own quarters, or renounce your sect membership, and I'll gladly bless your union. The moment I finished speaking, Mirabelle couldn't wait to interject. What about me? Didn't you take me as your disciple precisely because of my in-spirit constitution? I heard it with my own ears back then. You wanted to absorb my primordial een to break through. You even planned to imprison me for your nightly revelries, you shameless beast. My momentary silence only emboldened Mirabelle further. Run out of arguments, have you? I tuned out her words, my mind preoccupied with events from years past. Clearly, there was more to that old business than met the eye. Let's just deal with this reckless fool in front of us first. Nothing to say. I simply can't be bothered explaining anything to someone as willfully blind as you. I've already reached the pinnacle of divine cultivation, peerless in this world. Why would I covet your trivial primordial essence, or do you actually think you're so incomparably beautiful that I'd fall for you? 3 pointed questions shattered Mirabelle's fragile ego. She'd always been confident in her beauty, accustomed to having admirers at her feet, but she never considered I wasn't like most men, nor that I held no desire for her. As Mirabelle stood speechless, Daphne took over. Stop this. Landon, stop twisting the truth. You called me talentless back then. Said cultivation was pointless for me, made me the laughingstock of the sect. Do you have any idea how badly I wanted to kill you? I trained day and night just to stand before you one day and prove you wrong. The moment these words were spoken, all eyes turned toward her. The women who were about to speak promptly shut their mouths. This Daphne is seriously outrageous. They were also curious, though Daphne's cultivation speed in her past life didn't match theirs. She was still considered a genius. Hearing her words, I finally laughed. So after all this day and night cultivation, has your cultivation level improved? Daphne was stunned. The harder she trained, the more her cultivation seemed to plateau. I sneered. That's because I begged our master to cleanse your marrow with immortal essence and force awaken your constitution using a 9th grade elixir. The crowd gasped in shock. Even Evelina bowing her head in shame. If I'm this generous with Daphne, I certainly won't hold back with them. Over these past months, they've come to realize their cultivation progress is significantly slower than in their previous life. While they could be considered prodigies, they're far from being peerless talents. Evelina looked surprised but still argued defensively. Then why didn't you say so at the time? Everyone turned to look at Mirabelle, but Daphne alone hung her head in shame. I swung at Evelina with a slap. I'd have told you if you'd given me half a chance to speak. You've sealed my spirit and bound my senses. I couldn't even twitch a finger. What exactly did you expect me to say? Evelina was sent flying dozens of meters away, though she emerged largely unharmed. She quickly scrambled to her feet and approached Daphne, demanding, tell me, what exactly happened in our past life? Daphne fell into deep recollection. She recalled how 9 assailants had ambushed her. leaving her severely wounded with her cultivation sealed. The attackers were also gravely injured, so they dispatched Daphne to escort her to the abyss. On the road, she sensed a wisp of calamitous energy invade her body, then struck me with a sealing technique. My spiritual essence was sealed, senses bound, not even a chance to explain. She tried to speak, but that familiar calamitous energy surged through her again. She screamed, "Liar, you're the one who betrayed us. What else is there to say?" With a flick of my wrist, the wisp of calamity hovering over her consciousness fell into my grasp. While this thing can influence you, ultimately it's your own greed that's to blame. Daphne's face twisted into a grotesque mask of madness. That's not true. I didn't. It was controlling me. By now, the women had come to understand everything that happened in their past lives. The grievances and coercion they suffered had absolutely nothing to do with me. The next moment, a voice rang out. "Senior sisters, don't let Landon deceive you." Just as I expected, their junior brother Typhon made his appearance. He was still shrouded in calamitous aura, so intense that even the wooden puppet instinctively recoiled. The invisible miasma of doom swiftly engulfed the women, seizing control of their minds. A merciless voice seemed to whisper in their ears, "He is your enemy, kill him." Meanwhile, their cultivation was steadily advancing, soon to reach the level of their previous lives. Yet watching all this unfold, I felt surprisingly unconcerned. If my guess was right, Master must have made some progress on his end, but this still wasn't enough. The chosen pawn of Providence has appeared. Now's the perfect time to eliminate him. Just as I was about to strike Typhon down, a voice whispered in my ear, "Landon, stand down, let them go." But Evelina and her crew had no intention of letting me walk away. With a single gesture, 9 divine weapons materialized in their hands, each radiating celestial-grade power. Just as they prepared to strike, a thunderous explosion shattered the air. A dread-inducing grand formation began activating with ominous energy. Typhon cast a glance toward Blanche's direction before turning to face me. "Landon, you got lucky this time, but we'll be back soon, and that'll be the end of you and your master, mere mortals daring to defy the heavens. You're courting death." I stopped wasting words and let my actions speak for me. Seeing me strike, Typhon didn't dare linger another moment. With a flick of his sleeve, he fled in panic with his entourage. Now that he's been exposed, staying would serve no purpose. In that case, it's best to quickly restore the women's former power from their past lives. But he needn't worry too much. His only task is to deal with Landon straightforwardly. As for Blanche behind Landon, someone will deal with her. I watched the group depart. In the next instant, my vision shifted, suddenly finding myself before a mountain cave. "Master," Blanche waved her hand, then suddenly coughed up blood. Seeing this, I rushed forward in concern. "Master, what's wrong? You're scaring me." Blanche suddenly reached out, pivoted and pinned me beneath her, shouting angrily, "I've already spotted you. Won't you show yourself? What the hell is wrong with Master? I can't understand a single word he's saying. Now that Master has me under his control, all I can do is beg for mercy and try to jog his memory with our past." After I spilled everything, Blanche finally let go of me. Blanche now seemed gentler than before, her demeanor flowing with tenderness unlike her earlier severity. The more she acted this way, the more it sent chills down my spine. But I haven't attained immortality yet. I truly don't want to die at her hands without even knowing why. "Master, you're crushing me. Could you get up first?" Blanche took a deep breath. "You insolent disciple, how dare you covet your own master?" I suddenly realized I'd spoken out of turn, but who could blame her for rescuing me from dire straits? Back then I was just an orphan. My parents had been slaughtered by demonic beasts. She was the one who personally brought me back to Tianyuan sect and raised me. As a child, I was always clinging to her, nestling in her embrace, but hearing her say that now, I suddenly felt wronged. What's wrong with me liking my master? She's so beautiful. Does Master no longer want me? I'd rather die than face this. My earnest response sent Blanche's thoughts spiraling back a century. Her jade-like fingers tapped my forehead lightly as she sighed. "I was merely testing you to see if the demonic energy had taken hold. Who knew you'd confess everything, you wayward disciple?" Her lazy attitude made my blood boil. I spread my hands and said with a serious expression, "Master, I'm too ashamed to show my face in public. Don't you think you owe me an explanation?" The smile faded from Blanche's face, replaced by an icy demeanor. "Landon, you've got some nerve flirting with your own master. I'll give you one last chance to rephrase that, or else." The master raised his right hand, channeling earth-shattering power. My blood ran cold as I scrambled to explain. "Master, I was wrong. This disciple should never have spoken to you with such disrespect." Blanche nodded, then recounted the incident of being ambushed by the Grand Elder. A chill ran down my spine upon hearing this. The heavenly Tao has gone utterly mad. To think it could control a nascent soul-stage Grand Elder, leaving my master's chambers. I embarked on my long path of secluded cultivation. When my master's message reached me again, it was news of the fire cloud sect storming our gates. Leading the charge were none other than Typhon and the 9 Evelinas. All 9 had regained their Empress-level cultivation from past lives, their overwhelming pressure forcing Tianyuan sect disciples to their knees. I stood by my master's side, gazing at the sea of enemies before us. "Master, are you sure you can take on this entire horde alone?" The Tianyuan sect disciples remained silent, their eyes filled with despair. Blanche's cheeks flushed slightly, her heart pounding with tension. The heavenly Tao granted Tianyuan sect far too little time, especially when disciples like Little Grass and the Black Hound hadn't fully matured yet. Otherwise, we might have stood a chance even against the heavenly Tao itself. This trial could either break her or become her ascension to immortality. She shot me a knowing glance. "Stop pretending. Did you really think no one noticed your divine transformation cultivation? I entrust this first battle to you, disciple. I believe you have what it takes, master." With a wave of her hand, Blanche hurled me beyond the sect's protective formation as the barriers sealed shut. I turned to face Typhon and the 9 empresses, beginning awkwardly. "How about we make a deal and settle this a year from now? The power gap between us is too wide right now. Buying a year or so would work in our favor." But Typhon wasn't born yesterday. He sneered at me. "Don't play dumb, Landon. I see right through this master-disciple stalling tactic of yours. If you want to stall for time, fine. Just hand over Blanche's head. How about that?" I stared at him calmly and said, "Deal." The Crimson Cloud sect members roared with laughter while the Celestial Origin sect despaired. They never expected even I'd given up hope. Blanche seemed lost in thought. The next instant, Typhon roared, "Fall back. That bastard Landon's trying to ambush us with heavenly tribulation." I sneered. Too late for that. Countless tribulation lightning bolts had already locked onto most of the blazing Cloud Sect's members. Typhon barely managed to evacuate their elite forces, leaving the rest to scream bloody murder. This enraged Typhon so much that he wanted to smack these people dead with a single slap. Only the comforting words of the 9 empresses could slightly ease his fury. "Don't fall for it, Junior brother, this is just Landon's scheme to sow discord among us." The gentle voices of the empresses quickly soothed Typhon's rage. Suppressing his unease, he stared straight at me, enveloped by the heavenly tribulation. "Landon, stop sowing discord. Dragging them into your tribulation will only amplify the celestial punishment and hasten your demise." He hadn't forgotten how he'd fallen for my scheme earlier, but the thought of my current predicament immediately lifted his spirits. "Landon, when you're dead, the Celestial Origin sect will be mine, and so will your master." "Typhon, I never thought you'd stoop this low. 9 empresses aren't enough for you. Now you covet my master. You deserve death." Typhon smirked triumphantly, completely oblivious to the 9 terrifyingly darkened faces of the beauties. The first heavenly thunder struck, wiping out most of the Fire Cloud sect members caught in the tribulation. When the third lightning tribulation descended, the Fire Cloud sect was completely annihilated. The remaining Fire Cloud sect members no longer felt the initial confidence of certain victory. They realized their fate. They'd most likely be used as cannon fodder. Their plight softened the hearts of the 9 empresses, for in the end, they were merely larger pawns in this game. The remaining tribulation lightning, I assigned 1 bolt to each of my 9 disciples. As the tribulation lightning passed, the calamitous energy dissipated, and all 8 instantly regained their past life cultivation. The overwhelming aura stunned Evelina and her companions. Now the 2 sides were almost evenly matched, with their own faction at a slight disadvantage. After enduring 81 heavenly tribulation strikes, I successfully weathered the lightning ordeal and bathed in the radiant afterglow. At that very moment, Typhon roared, "Strike now, finish him while he's down." The blazing Cloud sect members launched their attack. The battle erupted, with my disciples clashing against the 9 empresses. Typhon stood before me. "Landon, prepare to meet your end." I glanced at him with indifference. "So sure you can defeat me? Don't forget, my master is here too." Typhon sneered, "Someone will deal with your master, but you won't live to see it. You'll die first." I scoffed. "That's bold. My master stands at the pinnacle of this continent. No one can best her. I don't know the true power of the heavenly Tao, but buying more time certainly helps." Then a colossal black hand descended from the sky with just 1 strike. My master was defeated. "Your master has fallen." The news spread across the battlefield like wildfire. The Crimson Cloud sect members rejoiced. While gloom settled over the Celestial Origin sect, I remarked coolly, "With skills this mediocre, she's hardly qualified to be my master." Wiping blood from her lips, my master shot me a stern glance and declared, "This master wields a sword that can shatter the heavens and grant all living beings their path to immortality." At the moment of ascension, I seemed to deduce the root cause of Typhon inciting those 9 to kill me. But all this must wait until master overcomes the heavens. Blanche's voice echoed across the battlefield, halting all combat as everyone sought to witness this moment. How dare mere ants defy the heavens? A deafening explosion rang in my ears as I choked back the blood rising in my throat. With just one finger from that colossal hand, my master was slammed deep into the earth, several mountains crumbled beneath our feet, and Blanche had already vanished. I let out a soft sigh. Master, you really oversold your skills, huh? A gleaming longsword shot forth, its tip lifting a single finger, sword and wielder as one. She's attained the legendary Sword Saint realm. The crowd erupted in awestruck murmurs. The colossal black hand trembled with rage, fingers morphing into a crushing palm. The master couldn't put up any resistance this time, getting slammed back into the ground. As the crowd watched in shock, the longsword pierced through the palm. Half of the monster's figure behind the giant hand was revealed, a black-furred creature shrouded in dark mist. Blanche grew uncharacteristically serious, triggering her celestial tribulation. The divine lightning of ascension that filled the sky was torn apart by the monster with a single swipe. The heavenly tribulation vanished in an instant. Did you see that, Landon? Our master's power is beyond anything you could ever imagine, yet something felt off to me. My unease peaked when the cheers of the fire cloud sect echoed through the sky. Without hesitation, I questioned the piece of wood we'd retrieved from the abyss. The wood remained silent for a long moment before sighing. We've all been deceived by it. I pondered the wood's words. Are you saying all this is false? Just an illusion, an illusion. 9 divine lights swirled around Blanche as an intimidating aura radiated from her entire being. A sudden pop echoed through the air, like the sound of something shattering. A bit late for that realization, don't you think? A sinister grin spread across Typhon's face as his aura surged violently toward the black-furred monstrosity. It was indeed too late. My master and I had completely exhausted our spiritual energy, leaving us utterly defenseless against his overwhelming power. I remained silent. He grinned. Landon, I'm giving you a chance. I suppose you've been reborn too. Kill them all, and I'll grant you a chance to attain immortality. How about that? I stared at him, confusion lacing my words. Reborn, immortality, are you joking? Typhon gazed at me, then suddenly laughed after a long pause. Denial won't change the truth. If those 9 could kill you once, they can do it again. With a wave of his hand, the 9 empresses regained their peak combat prowess, just as I suspected. Typhon's either a paper tiger or still recovering from grave injuries. This works in our favor. We'll catch him off guard. With a flick of my finger, the mountain protecting array activated, temporarily suppressing the 9 ancient Evelinas. Simultaneously, I swept my sleeve, forming 9 immortal swords into an array that enveloped Typhon within, yet Typhon remained utterly unfazed, even chuckling at me. I've been expecting this move of yours. The 9 empresses still within the grand array suddenly transformed into streaks of light, merging into the 9 immortal swords. With a snap of his fingers, he commanded, retrieve, yet the 9 celestial swords remained motionless, and he finally sensed something amiss. The onlooking crowd watched the scene unfold, murmuring theories about what had gone wrong, but only my master and I knew the truth. My 9 celestial swords had been swapped with hers. As a reincarnator, I knew my 9 immortal swords had been tampered with and could be seized during battle. So I secretly swapped swords with my master and purified them with tribulation lightning. The elders and disciples of Blazing Cloud Sect were in panic. If Typhon fell, their fate would be dire. Meanwhile, Celestial Origin Sect's morale surged as they fought with increasing ferocity, but the unexpected happened. Typhon's face contorted with rage as he roared, Landon, you scheming bastard. You'd already planned how to seal the sword's spirit, I grinned, when dealing with a sly old fox like you. I had to come prepared. The Blazing Cloud Sect's forces were in complete disarray, retreating toward Typhon. Typhon gnashed his teeth at the sight and growled, Landon, do you really think you've won? A sense of foreboding struck me as I formed a hand seal, ready to strike Typhon down. Typhon let out a sinister chuckle. Too late to make your move now. With a palm strike to the ground, a black-furred monstrosity erupted from the earth, pointing at the Blazing Cloud Sect members. He commanded, these are your rewards, feast well, then do your job, kill them all for me. The creature's tongue lashed out, swallowing the sect members whole before they could even resist. The spectacle forced the battling Blazing Cloud Sect leader and elders to halt, demanding an explanation from Typhon. In the next instant, Typhon unleashed a series of arcane hand seals. Did you really think stealing from me would be so easy? Return everything you've taken. Before the group could react, the monstrous creature swallowed them whole. Even some members of the Tianyuan sect found themselves paralyzed, falling victim to the attack. At that moment, Blanche made her move. A formation diagram flew out, combining with 9 immortal swords to create an impenetrable barrier. The black-furred monstrosities tried repeatedly to escape, but all attempts proved futile. Typhon fell to his knees begging for mercy. only to be devoured whole by the black-furred beast. The black-furred fiend's power surged dramatically, intensifying the pressure on our formation. Exchanging a glance with my master, we simultaneously triggered the heavenly tribulation for ascension. As divine lightning struck down, the monstrous creature was reduced to ashes, with the beast drawing most of the heavenly punishment. My master and I safely weathered our ascension trial. I looked at my disciples and asked who would follow me to the immortal realm, yet among the crowd, only Mudo and a few elder deacons stepped forward. No one else chose to accompany me. Xiao Chao and others declared they would ascend through their own cultivation, for reaching the immortal realm without merit would only leave them at the lowest ranks. Their words filled me with profound satisfaction. The 9 empresses from past lives also returned to their sword spirit forms, filled with regret. Yet no one would bear the consequences for them. Walking beside my master, gazing at the radiant sunset glow, I couldn't help but exclaim, "Celestial realm, here I come, you." The end. Story 2, December 11th, 2042. Today is exceptionally cold. On my way to work, I observed the overcast sky, feeling a sense of unease growing inside me. I checked the weather forecast on my phone for the upcoming days. It indicated that starting this afternoon, it would snow continuously for several days. With temperatures gradually decreasing, currently, it's just above freezing, but by the afternoon it will dip below zero. Over the next few days, temperatures are expected to drop to around -15 degrees Celsius. I tightened my coat collar and continued my walk to work. My workplace is located in the bustling city center, at a trading company. My home is not far from the office, just a 15-minute walk. By the afternoon, the weather turned bitterly cold, and snowflakes began to fall. Sitting at my desk, I watched the snow outside and couldn't shake a bad feeling. Perhaps it's because I am naturally prone to anxiety. I have a history of neurosis, a kind of psychological disorder that causes frequent anxiety. Although my condition hasn't fully recovered, I blamed this familiar onslaught on my recurring issues. Despite reassuring myself, after work, I braved the snow and went to the large supermarket near my home. I live on the 18th floor of an old residential building in the city center, a house belonging to my parents. They moved back to their hometown after retirement and don't live here anymore, so this 3-bedroom apartment is currently occupied only by me. I filled a shopping cart with groceries and lugged 2 large shopping bags home, panting slightly from the effort. At the entrance of my building, Grandma from downstairs greeted me. "Sarah, why did you buy so much?" she asked. "Grandma, I ran out of food at home, so I bought a bit more this time," I replied casually as I entered the elevator. Truthfully, I'm not fond of small talk. Even though I've lived in this neighborhood for over a decade, I'm not close to anyone. At most, I respond when someone greets me. My asocial nature has made me somewhat invisible. This is not just in my neighborhood. Even at work, I don't have friends with whom I can easily chat. Most of the time, I keep to myself and rarely get noticed. Once home, I quickly organized the groceries and checked the food I already had at home. There was still a good amount of rice, flour, oil, vegetables, and fruits left, including what I bought today. I now have 2 20-kilogram bags of rice, 3 10-kilogram bags of flour, 2 canisters of cooking oil, and my fridge is packed with vegetables, fruits, and meat. Even if I don't leave my house for a month or 2, I have enough to last me. The temperature dropped to -10 degrees Celsius the next day, and -15 degrees the day after. On the 4th day, the snow finally stopped, and the temperature reached -18 degrees. Dressed in a thick down jacket and walking on the snow-covered path, an idea popped into my head, and I made a detour to the supermarket again. This time, I didn't buy any food but picked up 2 packs of bottled water, each containing 10 500-milliliter bottles. Thinking of the 2 large water containers at home, I knew I wouldn't run out of water anytime soon. After getting home, I called my parents to ask if it was cold in their hometown. They said it was even colder there, reaching -20 degrees. Luckily, they have a traditional heated bed that keeps them very warm. Moreover, they mentioned that food was plentiful in their hometown. This year, the corn harvested fills the entire yard, along with radishes, cabbages, green onions, potatoes, and sweet potatoes, which are all packed tightly in the cellar. There's also a well in the yard, making water access very convenient. After graduating from university, my brother and his wife took over some farmland back home to start farming. This is also why our parents insisted on returning home to retire, as they could help with taking care of their grandchildren. On the 5th day, the temperature continued to drop to -22 degrees Celsius. On the 6th day, it started to snow again, reaching -23 degrees. The snow persisted on the 7th day, dropping to -26 degrees. At this point, more and more people began to feel uneasy and rushed to the supermarkets to shop frantically. In this second-tier northern city, such low temperatures hadn't been seen in many years. Even then, the city was actively clearing the snow, and people hadn't stopped working or production. These past few days, aside from buying a shopping cart full of items from the supermarket daily. I also visited an outdoor goods store and bought many warming supplies, including insulated clothing, electric blankets, portable heaters, and solar panels. It was like ants moving house, as I slowly brought a little more home each day, gradually accumulating. Today, the snow has been falling for a week nonstop, although not heavily. There are no signs of it stopping, and the temperature has already reached minus 30 degrees. Finally, the government issued a notice: classes are suspended. And all industries, except those essential for daily life, should avoid going out. The situation back home is similar. The village urged everyone not to go out and to stay home to keep warm. Knowing that my parents and my brother's family are together is reassuring. My company announced that starting tomorrow, we would work from home and distributed essential supplies to all employees. Each person received a 20-kilogram bag of rice, 10 kilograms of millet, 10 kilograms of flour, and a 5-liter can of cooking oil. Although these items aren't usually very expensive, they are lifesavers now that it's impossible to squeeze into the supermarkets. Since the items were too heavy for me to carry home and I couldn't find a taxi, my company's leadership arranged for Thomas, who was going my way, to give me a ride. Thomas, around 25 or 26. Joined the company with me 2 years ago. He looks average but is tall and burly, not someone you'd want to mess with. We haven't talked much and aren't even close acquaintances. Thomas is also a man of few words. The two of us, both not very talkative, had nothing to say on the way. When we reached my building, I pressed the elevator button while Thomas helped me move the items inside. Just then, a dejected couple from the 16th floor entered the elevator, seeing all the goods in the elevator. Their eyes lit up. Mrs. He, who I knew, quickly greeted me. "Sarah, you're so lucky to have snagged so much. My husband and I went to the supermarket and couldn't even get in, so we came back empty-handed." Her husband, henpecked, quickly chimed in. "Yes, I've never seen the supermarket so crowded. It's pitiful. We have 3 children at home. What will we do if we can't buy food?" I immediately understood their hint. Before they could continue, I pulled the supplies closer to me and said, "Sir, ma'am, these are from my company. We don't have much at home either, and we'll have to survive on these supplies for the coming days." The couple's faces fell immediately. Thomas spoke up. "Sarah, I'll try going to the supermarket again tonight to see if I can pick up some more stuff. We should stock up on some more food." I knew what Thomas meant by this. He was trying to help me. He wanted to give the neighbors the impression that I wasn't alone, that I had a boyfriend who would eventually move in with me. I have a strong sense of crisis, and I could tell that Thomas shared this feeling. After dropping me off at home and about to leave, I stopped him and asked him to stay for a while. I didn't want it to look suspicious to the neighbors that he came and left so quickly. Thomas had thought of this too, but he felt awkward bringing it up. After all, he's a man and was worried I might think he had ulterior motives. Thomas sat on the living room couch while I made him some hot tea and turned on the TV for him to watch. I went to tidy up my things. After more than half an hour, I returned to the living room and noticed Thomas constantly checking his watch. It was already 7 p.m., and it had gotten dark. He was clearly anxious to get home. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I hurriedly said, "Thomas, I'm sorry for keeping you. You should head home now. Thank you so much for today." Thomas got up to leave and went to the window, his brow furrowing unconsciously. I joined him at the window, and to my surprise, the snow was falling heavier, looking like goose feathers as it thickly blanketed everything. I hadn't noticed the snow getting so intense while I was tidying up. It was very dark outside, and Thomas, who had been watching TV, hadn't noticed either. No one expected the snow to come down so heavily in just over half an hour. Thomas hurriedly said goodbye. Worried that the accumulating snow would make driving impossible, I stood by the window and looked down at the street. From this angle, I could see the entrance to the nearby supermarket. Despite the heavy snowfall, the crowd at the supermarket had grown even larger, packed with people. I checked the temperature on my phone. It was minus 35 degrees. The indoor thermometer read only 10 degrees. And I still hadn't taken off my down jacket since coming home. It was simply too cold outside. And even indoors, I hadn't managed to warm up. Before the temperature dropped, it was 25 degrees inside. Now, even with the heating on, it was only 10 degrees, which showed how severe the drop in temperature was. Suddenly, there was a loud crash outside on the street, a car accident. Then, several more crashes followed as multiple cars collided in a pile-up. I grabbed my binoculars to get a better look and saw Thomas's car among the wrecked vehicles. I called Thomas to check if he was all right. He got out of the car, shivering from the cold, and assured me he was fine. With the temperature so low outside, the people involved in the accident could only wait for the traffic police to arrive, but it was too cold to stand around waiting. So many sought refuge in nearby shops to escape the cold, but aside from that large supermarket, no other shops were open. It was nearly a kilometer walk to that supermarket, in the end. They decided not to leave and stomped their feet while waiting for the traffic police to arrive. However, after waiting for almost an hour, no one showed up. Everyone was unbearably cold. The customer service of the transportation department responded that accidents were everywhere and the traffic police were overwhelmed. They needed to continue waiting. They couldn't wait any longer, nearly freezing to death. Some, whose vehicles were not severely damaged, started their cars and left. If they didn't leave soon, the heavy snow would bury the roads, making them impassable. It wasn't just the people waiting for the traffic accident to be cleared, but also fewer people were seen around the supermarket. People hurried home through the thick snow, fearing being stranded outside. When I checked the current news, I saw empty shelves in major supermarkets. The goods were almost completely sold out. Those stranded struggled to make their way home, their faces filled with despair. Unable to wait for the traffic police any longer, those with severely damaged vehicles also stopped waiting and turned to acquaintances nearby, hoping to take shelter from the storm in their homes. At this time, taxis were unavailable, and public transportation was paralyzed except for the subway, which was too crowded to enter. Thomas, having no acquaintances nearby and unable to return home, decided to walk a kilometer to the supermarket to stay warm. Then, his phone rang. "Hey, Thomas. Come over to my place for now. You can leave once the subway is back up later." It was my call. Thomas hesitated for a moment and then said, "Okay, thanks." After a while, my doorbell rang, and through the security camera, I saw it was Thomas. I opened the door. At that moment, Thomas's face was bluish-purple from the cold. I quickly handed him a hot water bottle. He took it, thanked me, and sat down on the sofa to warm up. I went to the kitchen and brought him a steaming bowl of noodle soup. Placing it on the table, "Have something warm." He thanked me again, took the chopsticks, and began to eat slowly. I sat on a nearby sofa, waiting for him to finish, my eyes filled with concern as I looked at him and said, "Maybe the situation is worse than we thought." Thomas looked out the window at the still heavily falling snow. His eyes filled with uncertainty. "Hopefully, the snow stops soon." Thomas and I each called home to check in. The situation at my parents' place was similar, with heavy snowfall. Their house, a 3-story bungalow, had independent heating systems and even a traditional claybed stove for backup. Claybed stoves were somewhat outdated, but my parents liked them, so they had one installed in every room. After hanging up, I heard Thomas still on the phone. "Dad, I still can't come back. Please take care, and keep warm," only to hear an angry voice on the other end. "You little rascal, not figuring out how to bring us supplies. Do you want us to freeze and starve to death? You ungrateful wretch, you might as well die out there." The person on the phone hung up harshly. Thomas's eyes moved away from his phone. He looked up and met my gaze. There was an embarrassed look in his eyes, but he said nothing. I quickly looked away, pretending I hadn't heard anything. We had been waiting for over an hour, and it was already 11 p.m., with the heavy snow showing no signs of stopping. If it continued like this overnight, the first floor might get flooded. I was constantly keeping an eye on the current news, and the situation was already quite bad. The only places that still had people outside were the supermarkets and subway stations. In the supermarket, customers who could make it home had done so, leaving only the staff and those who were stuck nearby and couldn't get home in time. The subway stations weren't as crowded as before, but due to the low temperatures, a lot of snow had seeped into the subway entrances, causing malfunctions at several stations, and the subway service had to be suspended. The few people and staff trapped in the subway stations had no choice but to stay there to keep warm. It wasn't just the city. Almost all cities in the north were experiencing severe cold weather. The south was a bit better, but temperatures there had reached lows not seen in many years, dropping to below 10 degrees, and they kept falling each day. This snow disaster was not localized. Almost the entire northern hemisphere was experiencing the erosion of a cold wave. Online, apocalyptic discussions were rampant. Although it was only the first day of the shutdown, people were already panicking. Suddenly, I thought of something and rushed to check if the water had been cut off. In such cold weather, the water pipes could easily freeze. When I turned on the tap and found that the water was still running, I quickly used every usable container in the kitchen to collect water. Seeing what I was doing, Thomas also went to both bathrooms to find all possible containers to store water. We both understood that a water cut was inevitable. Currently, my home had 4 19-liter barrels of water, 60 half-liter bottles of mineral water, and 10 5-liter jugs of water. Our current water storage was reassuring. After filling all the containers, Thomas washed his used dishes and utensils. By then, it was almost dawn. I settled Thomas in the guest room and went to sleep in the master bedroom. I quickly fell asleep but grew increasingly cold. Unable to bear it, I woke up shivering. Wrapped tightly in my blanket, I checked my phone for the temperature. The outdoor temperature of minus 43 degrees instantly jolted me awake. The indoor temperature had also dropped below zero. Shivering, I got out of bed, took out an electric blanket from the wardrobe, laid it on the bed, and topped it with another thick blanket. Thinking that Thomas must also be freezing next door, I debated whether or not to bring him an electric blanket, considering the propriety between men and women. I wondered if it was inappropriate to knock on his door in the middle of the night. After a mental struggle, fearing for his life, I decided to take him the electric blanket. Wearing my thickest clothes, I knocked on the neighboring door, but after a long time, there was no response, which made me anxious. Fearing something had happened to him, I hesitated to just push the door open. As he was a young man and could potentially overpower me if he had ill intentions, I stood at the door, freezing, but eventually turned the doorknob and went inside. To me, the unknown risk was less significant than a human life. This harsh weather could potentially freeze someone to death in their sleep. I approached the bed where Thomas still lay motionless. I shook him gently. "Thomas, wake up, I've brought you an electric blanket." He didn't react at all. I shook him harder, but he still didn't move an inch. A bad feeling washed over me as I touched his forehead and felt its intense heat. Considering his unresponsive, feverish state, I figured he must be delirious from the fever. If left unattended, he might just freeze to death. I continued calling his name and even pinched his philtrum and neck vigorously to wake him up. Finally, he showed signs of waking from his stupor. I hurriedly fetched some fever-reducing medicine and popped it into his mouth. I intended to give him some warm water, but the water in the kettle had already turned cold. With no other choice, he had to swallow the medicine with the ice-cold water. The chilly water jolting through his throat somewhat cleared his mind. While he was still lucid, I helped him shift position and laid an electric heating blanket under him. I also brought over an extra thick blanket and placed it on top of his existing one. Thank you." Even in his groggy state, he didn't forget to express his gratitude. After all was set, he fell back asleep, and I too was left slightly sweating from the exertion. For tonight, this makeshift arrangement would have to do. We would think of other ways to keep warm tomorrow. I checked my phone for the temperature. It was minus 45 degrees outside, and the indoor temperature had dropped even further to minus 8 degrees. Such low indoor temperatures could only mean one thing: the heating was out. At a little past 4 in the morning, I opened Instagram and joined the building's group chat, where a flood of messages widened my eyes. Many were awakened by the cold, all questioning why the heating had stopped. The property management responded, "Due to the severe cold, the heating system has malfunctioned and is temporarily shut down. Repair work is currently underway." Lying in my own bed, wrapped tightly in blankets, I read the messages in the group chat, unable to feel sleepy anymore. My phone kept buzzing with non-stop messages from the group. I had previously set these groups to mute, but now, to stay informed about most people's situations, I had switched them back to normal notifications. As I scrolled through the group messages, the initial complaints about the heating outage gradually turned desperate as people began to seek help. Someone reported that a family member had fallen ill from the cold, and they couldn't get through to emergency services because the snow outside had piled up over a meter high, making it impossible for vehicles to move. Others were pleading with neighbors for extra thick blankets, warm clothes, or emergency medical supplies. I stared at my phone for over an hour. Around 6 a.m., someone knocked on my door. Shivering, I got up and donned the professional cold weather gear I had prepared, much warmer than regular down jackets, but I only had 2 women's sets, which wouldn't fit Thomas's large frame. I opened the door to find Thomas awake. "You're up," I said. Thomas nodded. We sat down in the living room together. Momentarily lost for words, we both had a lot to discuss regarding plans for what came next, but we were unsure how to start. I suspected it wasn't just us. Everyone was likely filled with a fear of the unknown future. Thomas was still wearing the same down jacket he had arrived in, shivering as he sat there. I then realized that his body, only just beginning to recover, was still very weak. In such low temperatures, wearing so little was definitely inadequate. I went to my room and fetched some thick clothes that had once belonged to my dad, urging Thomas to layer up with an additional cotton jacket and pants. Thomas took out his phone. "The current temperature reading shows it's minus 48 degrees Celsius outside and minus 12 degrees inside. We can't go on like this," Thomas stated bluntly. "No matter how much we bundle up, these temperatures could kill. We need to find a way to keep warm. For now." It was an unspoken agreement that Thomas would stay here. Given the situation, neither of us could leave the house. At the moment, the only heating tools I have are a small space heater and 2 electric blankets, but they're barely effective, especially as the temperature continues to drop. We do have plenty of food and water, enough to last us both for 2 months, I explained. I had just checked and found that the water supply had been cut off. I'm usually very cautious, but for some reason I felt a deep trust in Thomas from the start. It was just a feeling, inexplicable. Maybe it was the aura he emitted that made me feel at ease. Since we were sharing a room, I saw no point in hiding anything and laid all my cards on the table. My openness made Thomas feel trusted. Despite the cold environment, it warmed our hearts. We could build a simple stove by splitting some furniture for burning. It should keep us going for a while, Thomas suggested. A stove? Do you know how to make one? I asked, surprised. It seemed unusual for someone of his generation to know how to make such a thing. Thomas nodded. I've never made one, but I understand the principle. I can dismantle the metal from the air conditioner or fridge to make a simple stove, and use aluminum foil and tape to create a makeshift chimney. With a stove, we can warm up, cook, and boil water. Suddenly, I rushed to the kitchen to check if the gas stove was still working. As expected, the heating was off. And so was the gas stove, since both used natural gas. My thoughts had been too chaotic to consider cooking as a future issue. Thomas and I shared some biscuits and drank some ice water for breakfast, then started preparing to build the stove. Thomas hadn't fully recovered yet, though he had taken some medication. He was still quite weak. Tasks like dismantling metal and chopping furniture with a cleaver were strenuous for him, but he insisted on not letting me take over, so he took on the primary tasks while I assisted him. After a whole day of effort, though exhausting, it made us feel less unbearably cold. By evening, the makeshift stove was ready. The stove was cylindrical, about 80 centimeters tall with a circumference of approximately 50 centimeters, made from the metal of a dismantled fridge and air conditioner. It had a small chimney that extended out through a window gap in the second bedroom, which we sealed off with tape. We placed the stove in the second bedroom because it was smaller and could be kept warmer more effectively. The room had a 1.5-meter bed, and we brought in another 1.2-meter temporary bed so that Thomas and I could sleep separately. Despite the inconveniences of a man and woman sharing a room, we had to overlook minor issues for the sake of survival. To make it less awkward, I hung a large bedsheet as a curtain between the two beds, giving us each our separate space. As for concerns about personal safety, I had dismissed such thoughts. After all, in such a cold environment, just surviving is difficult enough. Who has the energy to think about anything else? Besides, I can tell that Thomas isn't that kind of person. Right now, the most important thing for us is to stay alive. It's enough if the two of us can live together peacefully. After we fixed the stove and loaded it with some split furniture wood, the cabin slowly began to warm up. It's now 9 p.m. With the outdoor temperature at -53 degrees Celsius and the indoor temperature at -22 degrees, before we started the stove, the indoor temperature had already reached -30 degrees. Now, after just a short while of burning, it has risen by 8 degrees, which has really cheered us up. Although the snow is still falling and the temperature continues to drop, we will do our best to persevere. Communication has not yet been cut off, although my phone has been ringing all day. I've hardly paid attention to the messages in the group chat. In a way, this is also an escape. I don't want to pry into others' suffering. Just a brief look during the day revealed several messages about deaths. Though there's currently no power outage, the air conditioning lost its heating capability a long time ago. People without any solutions can only endure. If they can't endure, they face the fate of freezing to death. This is just the second day of the disaster, and already I don't know how many people around us have frozen to death. What will happen to people moving forward? The disaster area is too large for the government to conduct a full-scale rescue right now. The best thing we can do is wait and try to hold on. This is also what the officials are urging. My parents are still holding on for now. At this moment, Thomas's phone rang again, and he hung up directly. Today, his phone rang many times, and each time he hung up, each hang-up seemed to worsen his mood. In fact, he did answer a call in the morning, only to be met with insults and accusations instead of concern. The caller ID showed a man's name. I think it was his father. That's his private matter, so I didn't feel it was right to ask. We've had a long day and are both exhausted. Before going to sleep, Thomas placed a pot frozen into a block of ice on the stove, allowing the stove's heat to slowly melt the ice inside, to make this small room a bit warmer. And while the power was still on, we also turned on a small heater, lying in the 1.5-meter wide bed, separated by a curtain from Thomas's makeshift bed. We each had an electric blanket, lying there. We didn't have to worry about freezing to death. Now, at 10:30 p.m., the indoor temperature is -16 degrees, and the outdoor temperature is -55 degrees. Fortunately, the snow has finally started to lessen. The first floor was already buried in snow, and the second floor was half submerged. If the snow stops tonight, it might offer people a chance to catch their breath. I didn't sleep well last night because of the cold, but lying in bed now, I quickly fell asleep. Thomas lay in bed, his gaze fixed on his phone. His father finally stopped sending insulting messages and instead began pleading with him, hoping he could find a way to come back. He received a text on WeChat. Thomas, please bring back some warm clothes and food. We can't hold on much longer. Can you really bear to watch your own family die? Thomas typed back, how am I supposed to come back? Just to freeze to death outside. The other person replied, you ungrateful wretch, even if you die, you should die on the way delivering supplies. Thomas responded, so you mean, even if there's a slight chance I can bring supplies back, I should risk it? Even if it means I might die, this is what you owe me. I raised you and bestowed upon you immense kindness, a debt you could never repay, not even if you died for me, they said. The so-called upbringing involved being kicked out to sleep in the hallway with my stepmother and being your scapegoat, subjected to daily beatings and scolding. If that's how you choose to raise a child, why weren't the other two children treated the same? If you think I owe you, don't they owe you as well? You wretched creature, how dare you curse my children? You deserve a horrible death. May lightning strike you. Thomas turned off his phone, his heart sinking back into a painful struggle. He was relieved he hadn't made it back home the day before yesterday, at least at such a critical moment. He didn't have to face the ugliness of familial ties directly. The next morning, I woke from my sleep and checked the temperature on my phone. It was 3 degrees indoors and minus 55 degrees outside. I breathed a sigh of relief, grateful not to be in the sub-zero temperatures anymore. I was still in my cold weather gear, yet I no longer felt cold. I got out of bed and pulled back the curtains. The snow had stopped, and at last, it was a clear day. This sparked a glimmer of hope in me. I first called my parents to ensure they were safe, then started browsing the news. The official report listed the national death toll due to the extreme cold at over 30,000 people. The comments section was filled with outrage. No one believed the numbers. Nearly everyone accused the figures of being fabricated, citing instances of people freezing to death around them. How could it possibly be just tens of thousands nationwide? People were furious, questioning why help hadn't arrived yet, why was there no heating or water, and why had the electricity gone out? When would this dreadful weather end? Reading these comments, my brow furrowed, although we hadn't lost power yet. Seeing the situation in other areas, it seemed only a matter of time. At that moment, I heard Thomas getting up. He pulled back the curtain dividing us, and sunlight flooded in. I managed to smile and greeted him. Good morning, Thomas. After all, we were still alive, and it was best to try to keep our spirits up. Seeing the girl smiling in the sunlight, Thomas felt a warmth in his heart. Overnight, the water in the big pot on the stove had heated up. Thomas added more wood, stoking the fire. I poured some water into a smaller pot and cooked 2 packs of instant noodles. The bubbling noodles released an enticing aroma, making our mouths water. For us, who hadn't had a warm meal the day before, this was a feast in the freezing weather. Thomas and I savored the hot meal, feeling content. Our wood supply might last a month at most. If the weather doesn't improve or help doesn't arrive, it might get tough. Thomas paused. Let's take it one day at a time, I replied, surprisingly relaxed. Aren't you afraid of dying? Thomas asked, noticing my indifferent attitude. We sat by the stove, my gaze drifting to the bright sunlight outside, which was almost blinding, causing me to squint slightly. What's the use of being afraid? Since it doesn't help, why drown in anxiety? I shifted my gaze back to Thomas. I usually remind myself this way. Thomas smiled. That's a good method. Just then, bang, bang, bang. Loud knocks resounded in our ears. Thomas gestured for me to stay put while he put on a thick cotton jacket and stepped out of the small room. As he opened the door, a piercing chill rushed into the room. I shivered all over, and at the same time, Thomas shut the door. My phone was connected to the outdoor surveillance. I turned it on and saw 2 people outside, dressed in heavy clothes and wearing hats, scarves, and masks, making it impossible to identify them. Thomas, standing behind the door, asked, "Who is it?" The sound of a man's voice startled the 2 outside, who seemed to guess something. One of them, slightly taller, pleaded, "Is Sarah home? All 3 of our kids are sick. Do you have any medicine that you could spare us?" I recognized them. It was the couple from the 16th floor I had met in the elevator the day before yesterday. "We don't have any medicine. Please go back." Thomas bluntly refused. "Please, we're begging you. All 3 children are sick from the cold and can't hold on much longer. We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. At times like these, we have no one to turn to but our neighbors." The woman was sobbing and pleading. The disaster had just begun, and people hadn't yet lost their humanity. Coming to us for help likely meant they were indeed in trouble. After hesitating and ensuring our safety, I decided to help them this one time, especially because it involved 3 children. I gathered some anti-inflammatory and fever-reducing drugs and approached the door. I opened a small security window in the door and passed out 2 boxes of medicine. The couple took the medicine, and seeing that there really was a man in my house, realized we weren't just bluffing. "Sarah, thank you so much. Let us know if you need anything. We can provide anything but food," the sister-in-law said, filled with gratitude. "I don't need anything at the moment." I replied and closed the security window, hurrying back to the small room. Standing at the door for a short while, I felt like I was going to freeze solid. Back in the room, Thomas remained silent. "Thomas, do you disapprove of what I did?" I asked, shivering near the stove. Thomas shook his head. "No, the disaster has just begun. Being too cold-hearted now might make us targets later when people are desperate. Actually, if you weren't here, I wouldn't have dared to give out the medicine. Letting them see you, knowing that I'm not a lone woman, probably made them think twice. You did the right thing. Helping others as much as you can while ensuring your own safety is the right choice. Thank you. No need to thank me. Everything here belongs to you. You have the right to manage it. Plus, I'm also benefiting from your kindness," Thomas said. "Thomas, we're in a symbiotic relationship now. I'm very aware of that. Right now, it seems I am the one who relies on you," I confessed. Thomas, feeling somewhat embarrassed by my frankness, looked away. "Thank you very much," I said, feeling even more embarrassed. "No, it's my fault you can't be with your family. I actually don't want to go back there," Thomas replied, then paused. Surprised by his own openness about his private feelings, maybe we should change the subject. "Oh, okay." After saying that, Thomas quickly took out his phone and started browsing the news. Several calm days passed, and now the temperature outside was minus 60 degrees, a temperature so cold that stepping outside could turn someone into an ice sculpture. This extreme cold had persisted for several days without dropping further. If it had continued to drop, our small stove wouldn't have been able to cope. A few days ago, the electricity went out, followed by the internet. People were afraid to go outside and couldn't get any news from the outside world, living as if isolated on a deserted island. Although the snow had stopped, the extreme cold continued to drive people to despair. After the power outage, my solar panels came in handy for charging our phones and a desk lamp. However, they were not enough to power a small sun lamp or an electric blanket. Our cabin's temperature hovered around 0 degrees, just enough to keep us alive. The toilet attached to the cabin was at minus 10 degrees. Every trip to the bathroom was quick and urgent. It was no longer a place to leisurely browse on your phone. After the water supply was cut off, the waste in the toilet couldn't be flushed away. I started lining the toilet with bags, tying them up when full and replacing them with new ones. The waste would freeze quickly, thankfully not giving off much of a smell. Being unable to go out or communicate with the outside world left me idle, and I found myself sleeping more and more, often half the day. I felt like a hibernating animal. Every day, Thomas would check on our safety, cook, and clean, almost mothering me. Once all the chores were done and he was bored, he would read. We had a study in our house with hundreds of books of various genres, all of which Thomas had moved into the cabin. Before we lost communication, I had contacted my family. They had moved into the basement, where they had also relocated 2 traditional clay beds, keeping them heated from morning to night. My brother was resourceful, having connected the basement to the cellar, so food was not a worry. As for water, they made do by melting snow. Fuel was not a problem either. They had dragged corn from the yard which they could use both for eating and heating. Knowing that my family was in a better situation than I was here brought me peace of mind. To keep my parents from worrying, I told them I was with my boyfriend, and he was keeping me safe. Before we lost contact, Thomas's family kept urging him to send supplies. Although he was torn and struggled with the decision, he wisely chose not to risk his life by attempting the dangerous journey. However, the fact that his family had managed to hold out until the communication was cut off showed they had some means of keeping warm. The frequent pressures for Thomas to return, whether for heating or food, suggested they wouldn't last much longer. Today, Thomas and I sat beside the stove, drinking porridge. We still had plenty of rice, and while the small stove kept us warm, it also allowed us to simmer the porridge slowly. "Thomas, did you hear that noise?" I asked listlessly. The cold wind was howling outside, and we had become too comfortable these past days, our vigilance significantly lowered. Suddenly, Thomas stood up. "Not good. Someone might be trying to pry the door open. Don't move, I'll go check." As soon as Thomas opened the cabin door, the doorstop issued a piercing noise. The intruders had only managed to unlock the door, but with the doorstop in place, they couldn't enter immediately. Thomas quickly approached and slammed the door shut with a loud bang, which had been opened just a crack. Holding a cleaver in his hand, Thomas said coldly, "Get lost." The people outside weren't intimidated. Not knowing how many they were, they began to hack at the door with axes and kitchen knives, creating a terrifying noise. While they chopped, they cursed, "Open up, hand over all the food, or we'll kill you." I watched everything through the crack in the door, nearly paralyzed with fear. There were clearly several people outside. Thomas, no matter how tough was no match for them. I grabbed a knife and ran to Thomas's side, ready to face them together. Although I wasn't much of a fighter, I was prepared to resist with all my might. Before long, the reinforced door couldn't withstand their forceful attacks and was completely forced open. Seeing 5 or 6 people armed and charging at us, Thomas reacted quickly, striking one in the arm with his cleaver. Then he pulled out another dagger hidden on his body and stabbed another in the heart. A tall man swung a kitchen knife at me. Thomas, quick as he was, couldn't handle so many at once and couldn't protect me. I closed my eyes and swung wildly, without any technique, as the man's kitchen knife nearly reached my head. Suddenly, the man was stabbed from behind and fell to the ground. I opened my eyes and recognized my saviors. It was the couple from the 16th floor, with Thomas's fighting skills. And the help of the couple and myself, we managed to overcome the remaining attackers. But the husband from the couple was severely injured. We hurriedly brought the couple inside. Nowadays, with a lack of medicine and their extreme weakness, it was clear they had pushed themselves beyond their limits to help us. Soon after, the man passed away, and his wife, collapsing in tears, still managed to plead, "Sarah, I'm not going to make it either. Today, my husband and I pushed ourselves to come help. We've been sick for a while. And there's no food left at home. Please take care of my 3 children, I beg you." As she spoke, she began to cough violently, unable to stop, and suddenly coughed up blood. "Sister-in-law, hang in there. I'm going to find medicine for you. Don't worry. I'll take care of the 3 children. I'll look after them," I said, crying and frantically searching for medicine. Thomas didn't dare delay any longer and rushed to the 16th floor to bring the 3 children up. I found some anti-inflammatory and cough-suppressing medicine and tearfully tried to administer it to her, but she refused, gripping my hand tightly with her frail, bony fingers. "I won't take it. Save it for yourselves. Save it for the children." The children were finally brought up and began to cry loudly as they lay on their weak mother. Their mother comforted the children, assuring them everything was going to be okay and asked them to stay put and listen to me. She mentioned that Sister Sarah would take care of them. After she said these words, it was as if a great weight had been lifted off her shoulders, and she fainted. "Thomas and I are not doctors, and we don't have any medical supplies at home." We knew that she probably wouldn't make it. Thomas and I moved her to a bed and let the children stay by their mother's side. We then went outside to deal with the bodies. When I pulled the masks off the faces of those 6 villains, I couldn't help but start retching uncontrollably. They were all neighbors from our building, a young couple from across the hall, a young man from downstairs, an older man from the 7th floor, and a woman from the 12th floor. I had no idea when they had conspired to rob me, but I understood that despite knowing there was a strong man in my house, they targeted me because they had seen me bringing substantial supplies home before the disaster. It's been 22 days since the disaster struck, and many families have run out of supplies. No one came out to see the commotion after such a big incident. I guess there aren't many survivors left in this building. Thomas and I broke the lock on the opposite door and moved the bodies inside. In their small room was a metal basin burning wood blocks. It seemed a lot had been burned in that basin, and without a chimney. The walls were all blackened, even with this heating method. The temperature in the room was still around -20 degrees Celsius. It appears that our small stove was still the best at keeping us warm. We checked, and their home had no food left. This explained why they had come to rob us. Thomas looked at the burnt remains of their furniture and said, "This furniture will keep us warm for a while, right? And the wooden furniture from sister-in-law's house can also be used as fuel." We locked the fire escape door. Now no one could come up to this floor for the time being. After returning, I went to check on my sister-in-law on the bed. Her breathing was faint. I held the 3 children tightly, tears continuously falling. Thomas ladled out some porridge for the children, telling them to eat slowly. The children, starved and frozen, eagerly devoured the warm food without a second thought. The eldest, a 9-year-old girl, the middle child a 6-year-old boy, and the youngest, a 3-year-old boy. It was evident that their physical condition was much better than their parents', showing they had been well protected. My sister-in-law did not survive the night. She stopped breathing. Thomas and I moved her into the room across, laying her next to her husband, and covered them with a sheet. We stood silently with the children, holding a modest funeral for them. That night, I couldn't sleep at all, distressed by the day's bloody events, which had severely traumatized me. I was busy before and didn't have time to think, but now lying down, the discomfort and panic were overwhelming. Thomas sensed something was wrong and whispered through the curtain, "Sarah, can we talk? Could you come over here?" With the 3 children lying beside me, I carefully got out of bed and sat next to Thomas on the other side of the curtain. Thomas gently took my hand. "I'm here for you." My tears started falling uncontrollably again, and I quickly wiped them away. No. They'll freeze. Sarah, would you like to hear about my family? Thomas's voice was softer than ever. He held my hand. He didn't respond, merely sitting there in a daze. When I was 8, my mother passed away. Just over 3 months later, my father brought home a stepmother. She was his mistress and a cruel woman. After moving into our house, she made me sleep in the hallway. Later, she dumped all the household chores on me and demanded that I serve her. If she was the slightest bit dissatisfied, she would beat and scold me. I had hoped my father would protect me, but he didn't. He joined her in abusing me. Finally, after enduring until the college entrance exams, I got into a university in the city and escaped from them. For years, we had no contact. Unexpectedly, after I had been working for 2 years and made the down payment on my own house, they shamelessly showed up, a family of 4, and refused to leave my home. You know what happened next. There was a heavy snowstorm, and I couldn't return. That man kept pressuring me daily to send them supplies. His words finally snapped me back to reality, and my gaze fixed on his face. Thomas, it must be very painful for you. Yes, I suffered for many years, even contemplated suicide multiple times, but I survived, and I've been slowly healing myself, seeking redemption. So, Sarah, remember, nothing is insurmountable. Thomas placed his hand on his heart, his expression deeply sincere, because we have a strong instinct to persevere. As long as we are willing, we can endure anything. Unable to control myself any longer, I moved closer into Thomas's embrace. If he could break free from the curse of not being loved by his father, why couldn't I overcome my fears? In the days that followed, my spirits gradually recovered. We lived in this small cabin with our 3 children. At first, the children were quite reserved, but gradually, as they saw that we genuinely cared for them, they let their guard down and became more lively. Before, Thomas and I were scarcely active in this cabin, so we ate very little. Now, with 3 children, if we economize, our current food supply could last for another month and a half. Now, 33 days after the disaster, it's January 24th, 2043. We are planning that when we run out of food and ammunition around March 15th, it will be spring, things will start to bloom, and perhaps the weather will warm up. This is our hope, and it will sustain us. Due to previous starvation and cold, the 3 children were not in good health and were prone to sickness and fever. Fortunately, we still had some medical supplies stored, and with careful attention, the children's health gradually improved. Outside, most people have died. Although everyone tried to find ways to keep warm, very few have managed to last as long as we have. Most died from illnesses linked to the severe cold without receiving treatment. Others died from the combined effects of hunger and cold. Surprisingly, those who died purely from freezing were in the minority. A month has passed in the blink of an eye, and now it's February 28th, 2034. Inside the cabin, the 5 of us huddled around the stove, with Thomas holding a book, narrating his story. An image of peaceful times. Tomorrow marks the arrival of March, yet the temperature remains unyielded. It's hard to know if spring will bring any hope of renewal. Half a month later, just as planned, we ran out of supplies. Fortunately, the temperatures began to rise. It's unclear how much it warmed outside, but the temperature inside our cabin increased by 3 degrees. Looking outside from the window, the snow seemed not as thick, revealing the tops of buried vehicles. It wasn't that the snow had melted, rather, it had sublimated under the sun's rays. Thomas mentioned that there was still food in his car, leftovers from what his company had provided. If we retrieved that food, it could sustain us for a while longer. I vehemently disagreed. Despite the temperature rise, no one could be sure whether leaving would lead to freezing to death. I couldn't let him risk it, even if we were to die. I wanted us to be together as a family, through these hard times. We had grown to regard each other as the closest of kin. Thomas was stubborn this time, insisting on going. He argued that any slight chance of survival was worth trying to extend our lives. I couldn't stop him, and watched helplessly as he prepared to leave. Unable to control myself any longer, I rushed to him, hugged him, and kissed him, tears streaming down my face. Thomas, promise me you'll come back. He gently wiped away my tears, soothing me with a soft voice. Be careful of frostbite. Don't worry, for you and the kids, I'll do everything to return. Eventually, he left, dressed in the oversized cold weather gear I had adjusted for him, fully equipped for the journey. His car was parked on the road by our apartment complex entrance, only about 300 meters from our building. That was why Thomas felt compelled to go. Hope was literally just around the corner, and he couldn't just watch it slip away. I kept watch with a telescope, monitoring his every move. I saw him exit the building, saw his body sink slightly into the snow which had hardened. He trudged forward, each step arduous, but he persevered. Finally, he reached the car, chopping at the door with an axe. After what seemed like an eternity, he managed to pry it open. He laboriously packed the food into a box, tied it with a rope, and began dragging it back. What I didn't know was that beneath his thick clothes he was sweating from the exertion. Finally, he safely entered the building. Disappearing from my view, a foreboding feeling crept into my heart. I quickly dressed in thick clothes, grabbed 2 daggers, and ran down the stairs. On the 5th-floor landing, I saw 3 men fighting. One of them was Thomas, clearly weakened. He was no match for the other 2. His axe had been knocked away, and he was moments away from being stabbed. I sprinted forward and plunged a dagger into one of the attackers, saving Thomas. Realizing what happened, Thomas picked up the axe from the ground and struck the other man who was about to attack me with a kitchen knife. In that critical moment, Thomas was quicker, killing the man before collapsing from exhaustion. I rushed to help him up, checking for injuries. Fortunately, his protective gear had absorbed most of the impact, and he was only slightly injured. After resting briefly and once Thomas had regained some strength, we carried the supplies back up together. With these supplies, we managed to hold on for nearly another month, until we finally heard the sound of rescue helicopters outside. That sound, like music from heaven, seemed to pull us out of a dire situation. Thomas, the kids, and I made our way to the rooftop, frantically waving at the helicopter. Slowly, more and more survivors appeared on other rooftops. Once rescued and brought to an underground city, we settled down and started anew. A few days later, my parents and brother were also rescued. Seeing them again, I couldn't help but burst into tears. There were no signs of Thomas's family among the survivors in the underground city, indicating they hadn't made it through. Thomas had long come to terms with his selfish family members. According to official announcements, this disaster will last for many years. Even in the summer, the temperature outside will remain below -40 degrees. Therefore, our future homes will be permanently situated in underground cities. For us, as long as we can be with the people we care about and live well, even underground can feel like